It's a swing and a ground ball through the right side. A base hit for McKinstry. The pinch hitter scores Sweeney without a throw, and the Tigers tie it up in the bottom of the 10th in almost identical fashion to how the Yankees scored in the top of the inning. And the 1-2 pitch, ground ball left side, that's through for a base hit and could well win it. McKinstry around third, Dominguez with a throw to the plate, and the head first slide is in time. And the Tigers win in walk-off fashion, 3-2 over the Yankees here in Williamsport.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
Hey, guys. Great to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you on a Monday of game week. Huh? No excitement? Okay.
I mean, I do like my Aer Lingus.
It's kind of game week, but it is college football. This is our first official week of prepping, gearing up for an actual college football game here in 2024. Good Monday morning.
Uniforms and everything.
It is going to be a great thing. Nick and Jimmy, we got the Peter Man doing he's on the ones and twos today.
Morning.
Hi, Peter.
He's calling plays.
That's right.
Offense or defense, it's his decision.
Gary off all week. He's recharging for the machine that will be college football that is coming our way. That is going to be a very, very exciting year of college football. But yeah, I'm mildly husked because we actually have a college football game to talk about this week, and we'll do so at the end of the week. We'll be talking a little Florida State with the voice of the Noles, Jeff Colhane. That's going to be later in the week. So I mean, but yeah, we've got college football starting this week.
Calling cards for that.
Well, I do know that when we talk to him, it'll actually be, I think, late afternoon, early evening. I forget. What is it? 6 hours in front of us?
7, I think.
Something like that. Okay,
people
7.
here could probably tell us because they went.
Yeah, that's true. I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy, because
I mean, that's a him problem, not an our problem. But I genuinely wondered, did he have his long distance gift cards or phone cards that dial in?
I feel like this is a week where, as we get ready for the Aer Lingus Classic,
people don't even know what we're talking about. What? Dialing long distance gift cards?
Calling cards were a great thing, by the way. They really were. We will get to, maybe if we have time, just strolling down memory lane of when Nebraska had hit the road, which would have been this time 2 years ago. Hit the road for Dublin, which was the beginning of the end for the Scott Frost era, which had so much promise, as many Nebraska seasons have, and we were left with utter disappointment. We're hoping this year will be different. We'll get into a lot of that because another scrimmage took place. It was over 135 plays that we will talk about from last Saturday. Matt Rule had mixed reviews about it. A very, very unfortunate announcement right after the scrimmage on Saturday that we'll get into, but it's here. College football, an abbreviated version of it, is here this week, and then a week from today, my God, folks, we are going to be talking about game week, full game week. I got excited yesterday. I saw Omaha World Herald spread had their Super 6 out. They got all the high school football hoopla out too. That'll get going as well. As Gary's mentioned, because of Thanksgiving being as late as it is, you get a little bit later start because they would actually be starting games this week on a normal setting. But yeah, here we are, folks. I mean, we're done. We're done with maybe you could take your vacation. If you're not an Aer Lingus fan, maybe you could take that final vacation or that weekend getaway, but this is it.
What if your vacations revolve around football?
I mean, describe the volume of football. I mean, if you're
Lots of football.
If you're someone
going
who
out
is
of town to watch football.
Oh, if you're going to go out of town to watch football, well, yeah, then the vacation's just starting, and then you can spend your last few weekends at home.
Spend the weekend in Lincoln.
Yep, it's exciting. You guys want to know what's not exciting though?
What's not exciting?
So in the trials and tribulations of being a father of a 3, almost 4-year-old.
No. What did little man do?
Well, he didn't do anything.
Oh, good. Shout out little man.
But there are things that I don't really remember growing up. Now, I remember the first time I did ride a bike without training wheels. And I thought that was like, I conquered the world. I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world.
Fired up a lung dart, and
I was,
little Kelly Lee.
yeah. And so he's itching to, he's got all the kids in the neighborhood are driving in their bikes, and all he has is this little red tricycle thing that has a handle on it that we have to push, and it essentially steers for him and everything. So we basically we coddle him when it comes to that. Well, we decided, because the peer pressure's on, even though he's the youngest amongst a little group in the neighborhood, that we got him a little. It was a hand-me-down bike with training wheels on it. Guys, I didn't realize how frustrating trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike on training wheels, even on training wheels, is
10 minutes. Why don't you get it yet?
Exactly.
How do you not understand this?
All right, we're calling it for today.
That's how I was.
We haven't even gotten on the bike yet. No, we're good. I need an edible.
I got accused. This was hard to stomach on Saturday night of what my wife accused me of when it came to fathering our child. And now my wife, she was an athlete. She swam and played tennis. In fact, she did a little club tennis in college at future Nebraska football opponent UNI. So she does have a little competitive edge in her, but I'm supposed to be the one. I'm the male figure. I'm supposed to be the one that's always pushing the limits.
You're his T-ball coach.
That's right. Well, yeah, that's right. I've already coached. So Saturday, I think. So we got home. We showed him that we got him a bike. He was very excited about it, and he wanted to try it out. This is very similar to when he first started ice skating, where I think he sees it on TV. And he's like, "Oh, damn, that's easy. Anybody can do that." Well, then he sees all the kids riding their bikes around the neighborhood. And he's like, "Oh, this is going to be the easiest thing in the world." So we put him on the bike.
Give me about 10, 15 minutes. We'll have it out. We'll have it down.
Yeah, like we could take the training wheels off in 10 minutes. I guess I didn't appreciate the complicated just nature of having your feet staying on the pedal at all times and actually moving forward and not looking down and looking up so you can steer. All those little things that just come natural, that I could tell he was dejected by it because it was actually tougher than he thought, that I just said, "Hey, it's okay. We can pick it up tomorrow." And then my wife's like, "Oh, we are? We're not going to keep going?" I'm like, "Well, I think he gets the gist of it."
She comes out in a pair of bike shorts and knee-high socks.
This one got to me. She said, "You let him give up too easy." I was like, I had to remove myself from the entire situation, sit in the corner, and I needed to evaluate.
This is state championship baseball coach Nick Handley, so I can imagine that. Yeah, that did.
I was accused of letting our son give up on things too easy, man. So yesterday was a different day. Oh hell, yesterday was a different day. I should have wore bike shorts. I should have had a whistle on. Oh, I had like a little grease board talking about certain paths and technique, but. The good news is, again, it's very frustrating because it seems like it's just so easy, right? It would be so easy to do. I'm sure we all, when we first got on a bike, probably had the same issues. And I'm sure our parents were very, very frustrated with this. But man, it was, I'm just, how do you not get this? Your feet stay on. No, that one came off. No, it stays on. I don't know how I could say this without making it more easy to follow. But then I forget, little humans. They're little humans.
Little human.
But the good news is he started figuring it out. He started making his way down the driveway. We went to a parking lot yesterday. So he had no pressure, wide open concrete space. So that way if he steered in a 90-degree angle like he kept doing a lot, he wouldn't run into a house or a car. He would just go into a parking stall that had no car in there. So long story short, very frustrating to teach. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are like, yeah, I know. You ain't telling me anything I don't know.
So he's not doing the thing yet where he has like the one hand on the bar and got the other hand around someone, or at least practicing.
Not yet. But you know what he did try to do? He started trying to stand up on the seat, which, he's
already trying to do tricks.
Yeah. Well, as we know, that generates power. As he was trying to go up like a little tiny incline, he started getting up on the seat. I'm like, okay, now you're feeling this a little bit, but then he wouldn't sit back down. I'm like, okay, now you got to sit back down. No, he a lot of improvement within a 24-hour stretch. But yeah, when your wife tells you that you let your son give up on things too easy, boy, you got to check yourself.
Yeah,
that one cut to the core.
The next day, he walks out like a young Bob Devaney with a boombox playing the Hard Knocks theme as he gets on the bike.
It was a reality check, Jimmy. I don't know. I've accused people of doing that.
Right.
Like, come on, you're too easy on him. You got to challenge him.
She knew exactly how to press your buttons. That's a keeper.
She did. She did. And
That's
you know
the
what?
coach of the Handley family right there.
She is. Oh,
him.
she is. She wears the C, not me. But
the Bears sweater vest and the mustache. Honorary mustache.
Yeah. Oh, it's not that old yet. But yeah. But you know what? We came out with a game plan yesterday and it worked. Went to the parking lot, worked. Then now the only problem was getting him to bed because at 8:00 he waned to go out and ride the bike again.
Yeah, he's ready to just go out and tear it up.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. He got out of the bath and getting ready to put his jammies on. He's like, "Can I go outside and ride my bike?" I'm like, no, you can't go outside and ride your bike.
The high school kid that hooked up with a teacher, you think they might be into me now that I can ride a bike?
He was getting some.
I bet he's riding his bike at night.
He was getting some looks from another family that they had a little girl that she already was riding her bike, and he was getting some compliments from them. So he hopefully learned a valuable lesson too. That it's a good way to pick up chicks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No,
so,
he's ready for daycare. He's gonna have a great Monday.
It was that was a 24 hours of soul searching for me. So for every father and every mother out there that have done that, I'm telling you what, God bless you.
In the documentary of this, I now picture we go to the interview with Mrs. Handley saying, I just knew what he was capable of. And they'll ask him, you mean Reese? No, my husband.
Yeah.
What? The kid's fine. He's going to get it.
Man.
I just needed to get him back.
I mean, she's called me dumbass before and stuff like that. But man, when you say something like that.
The equivalent of the dad yelling at you instead. I'm really disappointed.
Yeah. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. We're not mad. We're just disappointed. And you're like, ooh.
Oh, what happened?
I prefer you be mad at me.
I just got spiritually castrated.
I'd rather you be very angry.
Here's a belt. Do you want to spank me? And I don't mean that in a dirty way. I'm just at the.
I'd rather you be hurling insults at me in every which way. But when you say,
tell me I was an accident. Anything.
Yep. It's really, really bad. It's really bad. But all is well.
He got it. That's that's the TLDR of this thing. He got it.
He did. And I apologize to his daycare in advance because he's going to be an absolute just disorganized, probably attention span going to be less than 3 seconds. It's usually about 3 seconds, less than 3 seconds today because that's all he's going to want to talk about.
I can relate.
Yeah, you were in that world, weren't you?
Well, no, I'm just talking about the attention span.
Oh, the attention span? Okay.
In what world?
You taught little humans at one point too.
Never to ride bikes.
Well, not a bike, but
no, I have to sign a liability.
Just dealing with everyday kid emotions.
I have about 75 tiny humans on a given day. But the secret, Nick,
that just sounds awful.
Well, the secret is two things. One, I read Bill Parcells' book, so that helped. And two,
Benadryl.
Yeah. Okay, so 3, you hire staff and then you send the kids to the staff.
Yeah.
So I had people that dealt with small kid problems, and I called them my kindergarten conflict experts.
Oh, that actually sounds
and
official.
And one
too.
of them, who I'm most proud of, shout out to Lauren. She's now a 3rd grade teacher, and I feel that she uses those lessons now to influence the lives of today's youth.
Anthony, by the way, on the stream, and good morning to Rick and Anthony and all of our
Rick. Thank you, Rick.
Our zone streamers out there.
I can't comment. It wants me to log in.
Anthony says, sounds like an athletic director trying to motivate the coach. That's a good way to describe our family dynamic. I believe
Did you
that
get
my
the dreaded
wife,
vote of confidence?
Yeah, I think so. Well, she hasn't done the presser yet, but at least that's a good dynamic description right now. Good analogy. I think my wife is more the AD. I'm the coach that's constantly,
she's a CEO.
Constantly second guessing himself. That's me. Yep.
She's because we got to tie this into the Bears for Nick. If you've been watching the Hard Knocks, which we finally got caught up this weekend, and I agree with the assessment of you and Gary of it. Actually, we agree, the 3 of us at home. But still, always an enjoyable watch. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a team. But we thought, well, picture it this way: Mrs. Handley is the Kevin Warren here, and you're the Ryan Poles.
Okay, that's fair. I'm glad you didn't call me Matt Eberflus.
Nope.
Because I'm still,
I like you. I don't want to hurt your feelings. This is just like school. You don't pick on your friends.
Well, I want to be high on Matt Eberflus. I don't know. I'm not high on him yet. He's got
like the beard.
He's got some proving to do. Yeah, this
doesn't look like Matt Eberflus anymore, which isn't bad.
Remember last week when we were talking about tries too hard guy? Did Matt Eberflus? I know that
I did get those vibes from him.
Yeah, the wife suggested the change of look, but is he trying too hard? When you completely change up, like all of a sudden you go to like the slick back hair, you get the proper fade, you're going like with the fashionable beard. The reason I have a beard is because it's the only hair I can grow. That's why I have a beard.
That's good look.
But he has he's
he's
still got hair.
Must be nice.
God, this looks like a new person.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it was Matt Eberflus.
He's changing his image. So I don't know.
He looks more Chicago.
He actually does. That's a good point.
Pizza? No, thank you. I'm from Chicago.
Scorched by a flaming hat nacho.
We can all relate to.
But I don't know. Is that try too hard? Is that midlife crisis? Or is that just simply a wife with a request and, happy wife, happy life type thing?
Hey, sometimes maybe she's into that kind of thing. It's kind of a thing.
When they were having like that 4th of July party, though, and he had that weird sweater shirt.
Yeah.
I was like, dude.
Come on. Yeah.
Chicago. Are you trying too hard?
You should be wearing a Mark Grace jersey.
Right. Or even like you mentioned the Ditka sweater. He could be wearing the Ditka sweater for a 4th of July party.
Or a t-shirt of Ditka in the Ditka sweater.
Even better.
That would have been.
Even better. Yeah, it just looked too hoity-toity. I get it. You got money. Cool. Good for you. But
this is Chicago.
Right.
They're not going to see that guy. See, that's what I want. I want to wear a $500
he said something about
that's made out of cashmere.
He said something about you can see the fireworks from the country club. Come on, man.
That's not something we're going to relate to.
Yeah, exactly. Chicagoans they do not relate to that.
Which country club do you belong to?
Yeah. The Stoysich Country Club.
What's the one Travis Tritt sang about? That's the country club I belong to.
Good Monday morning, by the way, everyone. We are going to get into some college football today because there's a lot to get to. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald will join us in his regular spot at 8:30. Jacob Bigelow also, and we are going to continue our friend or foe segment, Ohio State. We have reached that part of the schedule where we're talking Ohio State. Could this be the game where Nebraska comes in, much like they did in 2016 against Wisconsin? Could they be 7-0?
That would get the big nude show.
It most definitely would. Now, that is not to say, hey, they're 7-0. Why not get 8-0? Why not make that leap to where they could go into the horseshoe and take down one of the most talented teams in college football? But we will talk to Patrick Murphy.
Just be nice.
Patrick Murphy from Bucknuts, 24/7 Sports.
Bucknuts. It always cracks me.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good outfit. Such a good outfit there. Good writers that they have. But yeah, I mean, whether it's Dave Biddle or Steve Hellwagon or Patrick Murphy, anytime you get a chance to say Bucknuts, it's always a good day. Lineup brought to you by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. You can always join in on the conversation any way you want to. You can start by punching the numbers in your phone, 402-951-1620. That is the number to the 42-degree The Source hotline. Also, you can hit us up on the email. That is by Equitable Bank Inbox, where they take banking personally.
Doug's back. It's football season. So
yeah, we've got a few more emails from Doug lately.
He's paced himself, but that's how you know we have survived the summer, and we're here. Doug's coming back. All our friends are coming back. It's kind of like gremlins when they wake up out of the cocoon and the ears
feed them
just
after midnight.
Yeah, and they pull off the eyes, and you can just see they're like stretching. And
well, hopefully Doug doesn't terrorize an entire small community though, like the gremlins did.
Well, no,
I'll never forget the theater scene. Boy, that was scary.
Hey, but that's what they wanted to watch. And think of all the movies they could have watched back then. They could have watched Risky Business. That could have been good. They watched Snow White. See, this is 84. What else came out in 84? They could have watched Temple of Doom. They could watch some older, early 80s movies.
You just have a little file in your head that's going into the 84 folder.
Yeah.
And you just open it.
I mean, let's be honest. The first album they're listening to is The Great 1984 by Van Halen.
Now, that is a great album. That's an album that I have probably half of the songs Still on playlists.
That's what you get Reese when he turns 17. You want to do 16. You want to make him earn it, make him do well in school. Maybe leading into senior year, you get him convertible, T-tops, give him a couple of cassettes. You get 1984.
Kid likes a good cutoff.
REO Speedwagon.
He likes a good cutoff.
Ooh, Georgia Satellites. There. Tell him keep his hands to himself.
The Equibank inbox is where you can email the show. I am Handley at 1620thezone.com. He is Jimmy with a Y. Jimmy with a Y at 1620thezone.com. Also on Twitter, the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Nick Handley 1620. And
I mean, you can tweet us at Sharp and Handley.
Oh,
I
yeah,
have that
okay.
open.
Yeah, you
Peter
have
has
that.
it open.
All right, Peterman has that open. That's right.
Yes.
That is true. So the big question is then, there was preseason football on, but did you guys football your weekend, or did you say, you know what, we've got college football starting this weekend. This is going to be a weekend, like you said, you caught up on Hard Knocks.
A lot of DVR that we'd put up because in our family, yes,
your DVR was pregnant with shows, and you caught up.
You know what? And in our family, it is all about football season. That was part of the foundation of our relationship. I'm not kidding. Our first conversation came when Taylor Martinez was running all over Washington in 2010. And that is the epicenter of everything. So to mentally prepare ourselves for
you guys watched old Taylor Martinez highlights?
Yes.
That's what you guys got into this weekend?
Hey, you know what?
With a glass of red?
When I need to get fully husk, when I need a natural Hims pill, I watch Taylor
Martinez. I believe
Martinez.
it's Blue Chew now.
Oh, okay. Well,
Blue Chew
at least it's not Big League Chew.
Blue Chew's all the rage.
I get on the YouTube, light some candles, and I watch Taylor Martinez run all over K-State a few weeks later. That still brings joy to my heart to watch that today.
It's nature's Viagra?
Yeah. And I'm not saying, oh, you're wanting to go back to those days. No, just that one. I like that day. Because where I was working, there was a lot of purple, and I wore red that day, and they were very quiet.
Yeah, so I was at that game.
But,
same thing.
Last laugh here. Turner Gill was coaching my alma mater at that time, so I'm not really in a position to talk.
It was just fun because I remember
they
that.
Won?
Well, that was the third time I've been to Manhattan for one of those games.
Did you go as a fan or working?
A fan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, with a big group of Nebraska fans. We made the trip. We got down there early in the day.
Beautiful
we hit up the old Aggieville. Had a good old time, and it was actually tame when we were at Aggieville. But as we made our way closer to the stadium,
we got angry.
Oh, we were getting You could tell you're in enemy territory because a lot of
our team's going to score more points than your team.
We saw a lot of older folks. And there was just a lot of reminiscing about the old Big 8 and Big 12 days. So that was kind of fun. But then as we got over to the...
but then he turned his helmet around, and the bastard didn't throw a flag, even though it was a 15-yard. It should have been a 30-yard penalty. That's how bad it was.
Oh, that was... as we got up there, oh, man, there was a lot of K-State, Nebraska angst. And
Travis Oaks that turned his helmet around?
Yes, that's a good call.
Oh, trust me, that picture's everywhere.
The picture when it's in the still shot where his head is literally backwards.
Weddings.
It's like an exorcism.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
is that Eric Crouch or Linda Blair? Whatever it is, it's not a penalty.
I mean, it was a Thursday night. It's a primetime ESPN televised, so they were extra juiced up for that one, thinking that they had a shot in that game. And then when Taylor did what he did, the first run may be considered sort of flukish, but then when you realize that Kansas State, no matter what, could not tackle him, even if they had the correct blitz dialed up, and Taylor would just be like, tee, and run right by them. How quiet that stadium got that had
preschool.
It had a lot of juice that night, too, and that was a lot of fun. I walked out and honestly did not hear one thing of any type of, go back to Omaha or Lincoln.
We're trying, man.
Yeah, like
Jesus, do you see the traffic?
We will be.
We can't get out of the parking lot, Dick.
So
you think we want to stay here?
That is a good one to get primed for the season, no doubt. But
that's not. I mean, there are other great Husker games to take in, obviously, but that's one I enjoy watching.
I would think a lot of people would dial up the 2000. See, this is kind of like me doing the Game 7 of the World Series in 2016 and stopping it after Rajai Davis hits the game-tying home run off of Aroldis Chapman.
Not judging.
Where in my mind, it's like, okay, they won, even though I know they didn't. You could watch the 2009 Big 12 championship game and just watch Ndamukong Suh really to that kickoff that goes out of bounds. Once you get to the
zero,
kickoff that goes out of bounds, and you can turn it off.
Game's over. It hits zero. It's zero.
Yeah.
Ball's incomplete.
Yep.
It's over.
Yeah.
All right.
Once Colt McCoy throws it out of bounds, you're like, all right, turn it off. You don't even have to see Mac Brown holding up the one finger. We got 1 second.
Nebraska beat us.
Got one.
Maybe they're number one.
Got one.
Texas.
I think that will get any Nebraska fan fully hussed.
My mom still brings up my reaction to the end of that game when they kicked the field goal. I had vague memories of it, but she says I went outside and just laid in the snow. Just
how old were you, Peter?
So what year was that?
That was 09.
09. So I would have been about 10.
It's 26.
So you threw a full-on Husker tantrum.
A full existential crisis
beautiful.
In the snow.
Anyone want to know why Peter's smoking Salem's out there? And also, how did he get Salem's and why Salem's?
That's when I found out sports could hurt really bad.
And he's drinking a bottle of Aftershock laying in the snow.
Where's our son?
You know what? I might join him because that was a BS call. We should have won the game. We did win the game. I understand.
Man.
That's relatable.
There are a lot of people
laid in the snow that night.
I love that you just went in the snow. You weren't going out there to do a celebratory snow angel or anything. You went out there to...
No words, just lay in the snow. Try to feel something.
Just, look, I can see my breath. It's cold.
Speaking...
Anthony on the stream, here you go. Watch 95 kickoff classic. Saban takes a beat down. That's right. 50-10, I believe, was the final that year. 90.
Josh Spire. Remember the K-State fan with his mouth agape? Yep.
Yeah.
Just sitting there going, huh? It was very... Actually, yeah, because that fan reaction...
I almost had getting decent exposure at work that night because I was so excited.
I just remember getting a lot of, when people know you're at the game and then they see like certain areas of red, and they're like, "Hey, are you over in this section?" and stuff. But I for some reason, I believe I got that picture text to me of the K-State fan like going. It was very similar to the to Michigan fan.
A surrender Cobra.
Yeah, that was one of the great ones too.
It was a great night. I like that night.
It was a good one.
I like 2010.
So
the year in general.
I feel like this will be a conversation this time next week of how you will spend your 5 days leading up to kickoff of Nebraska UTEP. Will you partake in such a tradition of watching certain games to get you fired up? Will it be 5 days of 5 of the best games according to each Nebraska fan and how they get fired up? I think we gave you two really good examples right there too.
I go back and forth. I watch some old Nebraska games. I'm not kidding. It's not just because I live here. I love watching I'm sick. I'm a sick person. I admit this. That's why it's okay. It's okay to be an addict if you admit you're an addict. But then I'll watch some old Kansas games. Got it. And then just to kind of top it off. Obviously, got to watch some old Cowboys games because
do you watch the 07 Nebraska Kansas game?
What's that?
Do you watch the 07 Nebraska Kansas game?
Sometimes pants optional. But.
That's a game I know Nebraska fans are definitely not watching, getting ready for the season.
However, that game did help because it helped finish off Bill Callahan. Not that he was going to survive.
Yeah.
But it led to some better days. We're talking about that 09 game. Point. It kind of started then to continue to, change the program. And yes, I know the decade that followed, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about that short.
Well, Bo gave you 9-win seasons at least.
Roy Halou, loved Roy Halou. He just scored another touchdown against Missouri. 14 years later, just scored another one.
Couldn't help yourself against Missouri.
He had 1,274 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns in one game.
Those are facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are facts. So, the 95 kickoff classic, Michigan State, Nebraska. People do. I think probably a lot of folks forget about Nick Saban as Michigan State because you know how we do the welcome to the Big Ten. So now USC's Reggie Bush highlights are now Big Ten highlights.
Right. Big Ten coaching legend John McKay.
Yeah. One of the great Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks in recent time, Marcus Mariota, is a Big Ten alum now.
O.J. Simpson, Big Ten alum.
Do we reverse it, though? Do we say, hey, even though he was in the Big Ten, now we know him as an SEC great. Big Ten should be claiming Nick Saban, right?
I think everybody at this point could claim. The SEC could claim him. The Big Ten could claim him. The MAC could claim him.
The Dolphins do.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like that about Matt Eberflus and Nick Saban? How, Nick Saban coached Matt Eberflus when he was at said MAC school.
He could hit, apparently.
Yeah. He looked a lot bigger, a lot more intimidating. He had the full on neck roll though too.
Everyone did back then.
But he put the jersey over the neck roll. See, sometimes he had like the cowboy collar that stuck out, like the bars.
Man, pads used to be ginormous.
But when you put it over either the neck roll or the cowboy collar, and just
the Brian Cox.
Yes. Oh yeah,
it
it looked like a roller coaster seat
Loved me
that he
some Brian
attached to his
Cox.
back. Thing just stuck right out. Yeah, it looked like a roller coaster seat. I feel like, were you, if anybody had that in high school, because I don't recall seeing those in high school. Maybe you couldn't wear them in high school, or were you maybe had your family had a little bit more money than others if you wore the Brian Cox. Again, I call it just the roller coaster seat.
Yeah.
I feel like that was really hard to come by.
You didn't see that too often. I feel like only the baddest asses wore that.
I always thought guys who wore visors were either tries too hard guy or they had a lot of money too.
Which is cool. Like Eric Dickerson.
Yeah.
Eric Dickerson was cool.
If you had a visor on though, weren't you probably had
McMahon? He had a visor.
Your family did okay.
Yeah.
Either that or you worked your tail off and you earned that visor.
Yeah.
You had you had to tassel corn in the summer.
Some people less fortunate maybe put some saran wrap instead on the hill. They won't notice. It's just like the other visor.
You might have some very
also keep your face nice and fresh.
Very creative parents that understand how to like maybe cut some extra material that they have laying around in the garage and make it into a visor.
This isn't a visor.
This
isn't a clip thing.
This is how I thought when I was young. I just assumed if people had like the extra equipment that wasn't provided to you from the team, other than maybe the occasional wristband, that your family did well, that you had extra money, and I was jealous. Here I come in my 85 Celebrity Wally wagon with wood paneling, and you have your Corolla. Like, whoa. You have your Camry. Camry was a big deal.
You have your 92 Ford Taurus, which in 1992 was a big deal.
It was.
By the time we were in high school, that was usually someone's first car.
That's very true. It's very true.
The AC had broken. But as we learned, different time, kids don't do this now. If you drive fast enough, you don't need AC. That's what they used to teach me.
Coming up, though, we are, as I mentioned, Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald, Jacob Bigelow, Patrick Murphy, going to get into a lot of college football topics as the season does get underway this weekend, which is very, very exciting. But we have a lot to get to from this past weekend involving Nebraska. Some unfortunate news at a key position for Nebraska. And also, when, and maybe more importantly, does it matter when Matt Rule officially announces who the starting quarterback is? Is there a more important?
Be.
Yeah, I know. But is it more important? Because there were some things said about a certain quarterback this weekend that has me intrigued about what QB2 could actually look like. And there was a big decision that did not go Nebraska's way.
The Colonel.
And two people. One I'm not so surprised with, but another that is on the Nebraska bandwagon this year that we will get into. And
that's quite the pair.
One of the most notorious coaching personalities in all of college football in the last year has found himself a gig.
Yeah.
Has found himself a gig. We got some NFL preseason reactions as well, some Major League Baseball. Mentioned the High School Super Six. We'll tell you who those guys are. All of that coming your way. Glad you're with us on a Monday. It is Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy and Peter and Nick with you all week long here on 1620 The Zone. Welcome back to 1620 The Zone, mornings with Sharp and Handley. It's Jimmy Chavez, myself, Peter Krenzer with you on this Monday, and appreciate you making us part of your morning. So going back to the stream to relate to Josh's, I'm sorry, not Josh. Josh does relate to Peter's.
Shout out Josh.
Yes, hello, Josh.
Shout
Josh
out.
the Pirate. Not to be confused with Steve the Pirate. Josh the Pirate says, your existential crisis, Peter, was a communal one. I was just newly wedded and punched a hole through the drywall. My wife probably wondered for the first time what she got herself into in regard to the 2009 Big 12 championship
So
game.
yours was healthy. Yeah, he probably needed to put his hand in the snow after that. You were
Yeah, that
already
probably
laying in
didn't
the
feel
snow.
great.
Does Mama Peter have a picture of your tantrum?
I should look into.
I would love to see that.
I'll
First of all,
ask
I want to see a 10-year-old Peter. Okay, well, let me back that up. I want to see a 10-year-old Peter Krenzer.
All right, we got a new promo.
Man. Yeah, I want to see a 10-year-old
morning.
Peter Krenzer.
Good thing we're not talking to anyone from Penn State today. That would have been bad.
I am fairly positive my mom took a
I would
picture of
hope
it.
so.
We
I
have
know.
to.
I know if my son did that.
Like, I'm pissed off, but let's get the camera. Well, actually, we were
I'd be kinda proud of
iPhoning by then.
Is he
so
okay? I don't know, but it's hilarious.
Well, we were
He's not
reminiscing because it was cold out. I was coming back from, gosh, this is weird. UNO when they had football, so that was weird. They were playing in a bowl game. Yeah, it wasn't always just the playoffs and then you were done. You got to play in bowl games every now and then. They're playing in the ever so famous Kansas Bowl,
I have heard of it.
which was in Topeka.
I've heard of that too.
And people remember, and I know you being in Kansas for a good portion of your life, remember that there was this absolutely
Wacko.
whack job religious cult called, I don't even want to give them,
That's not a K-State reference.
I don't even
either.
want to give them pub, but they would protest any major like sporting event or
Anything
any
fun.
get together. Yeah, anything where people got together. And I remember telling my radio partner, David, as we were pulling into the stadium, because I remember this being a thing.
Is that where they protested that? They picked the Kansas
Yeah,
Bowl?
they picked the Kansas Bowl, and I was joking because we were where
Those liberals
we
from
were
Omaha are
playing-
down here.
we were playing where their, I say, quote, church.
The Berkeley
was.
of Nebraska.
And they were, yeah, there was, it wasn't their usual,
You got
2
the B
dozen
crew.
people. Yeah, we got the B
You
crew.
got the equivalent of the 8%
Just
of the
because
country
we were
game.
playing a football game in their home city, that there was protesters as we pulled into the parking lot, and they were protesting the game. And if anybody knows the cult I'm talking about, again, I'm not even
So
going to name
they
their
were
name.
a split squad, is what you're saying.
They were definitely a split squad. Yes. Their starters were probably somewhere else. Hell, their starters might have been in Dallas at the Big 12 championship
That's true.
game. That's
It was
probably
cold
where they
there, too.
were. But yes, in Topeka, if you know about Topeka and you know about the religious cult that's out there that protests everything, and they
wear
think
purple all the
something
time, and the power cat.
yeah, everything. It wasn't K-State fans. That yes, they were protesting that right as I said it, and I go, oh my God, there they are. Like, okay,
Let's
now
get a picture.
now it's officially an event. I know. I wonder if we would have went up and given them a selfie.
Put your
with, like, the
sign
middle
down.
finger.
Those are mean words. Can you just stand in the
Well,
picture
okay,
and smile?
that was kind of the weird thing though, Jimmy. Is you remember they blame every bad thing on a certain thing.
What does that have to do with this?
And they had like there's little 5 and 6 year olds holding signs up that have that word on there. I'm like, you got to
Oh,
be kidding me.
Suddenly the Handleys aren't such bad parents. They're teaching their kid to ride a tricycle.
Hey, I just like that someone referred to me as trying to channel my inner Herb Brooks and try to motivate my kid how to ride a bike. Oh man, that would have been great.
Or Gordon Bombay after they lost to Iceland.
When he became Captain Blood. By the way, watch that this weekend because Reese is back into hockey again.
Well, it's almost that time.
Wants to see some hockey movies. And he now likes Mighty Ducks 2 and 3. So he likes the older versions.
When has he seen Slapshot yet?
Not yet. That's probably when he turns 4.
Fair.
Yeah. Which is coming up.
Unfortunately, my mom does not have a photo. I'm gonna look through my dad's old iPhone because I
Okay.
feel like if
Wait, are you
anyone was gonna
on your
take
mom's iPhone right now? You have access to your mom's iPhone
No,
photo library?
no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
Wow.
scary if that's
That
a
is
thing.
one hell of a
No.
hack right there, man.
No, definitely do not want to cross over our things. That would be way
She
too
might see some
chaotic.
pictures of you that you don't want her to see either.
No.
I know you're trying to get the ladies.
Are you having some of that beer?
Is this you drinking?
You look,
Over 21.
you look overly happy with your cheeks aflush. What happened? Well, one of two things. Either one you probably don't want to know about. It was some bad news when Matt Rule spoke to the media on Saturday after a 137 play scrimmage. Now they're going to have a game type setting this weekend. He did mention that UTEP install essentially goes in on like full UTEP on Wednesday into Thursday, because I know a lot of people were worried about that.
Oh, we're going to break it down on every play.
Yeah, the UTEP install will go in. Again,
Just open with an option.
No disrespect to UTEP at all, but yeah, I know that's always a question. I just assume the coaches know what they're doing. They're putting in the install when they need to. But yes, that'll be Wednesday and Thursday. Probably the biggest bummer, not even probably, this was without question the biggest bummer. It's problematic from a standpoint of depth at a key position, but more than anything, this is one of the best dudes on the team as far as just overall character. And if just listen to his interviews with the media, Javen Wright he's awesome to talk to. Always had a smile on his face. The guy's overcome so many different injuries, just really odd injuries too. He had the blood clot diagnosis that ended his playing days 3 years ago, forced him to take blood thinners for almost an entire year. Then he had 2 MCL tears. The kid has gone through so much. Sad. I mean, yeah, and he's, again, always keeping, at least in public, always keeping a very upbeat, very positive attitude. And it looked like not only had he turned a corner, was playing essentially injury-free, but as Matt Rule said, and as what we heard from between Tony White, what we've heard from Rob Dvorak, is that he's playing at a very, very high level, was going to be a guy that if he wasn't starting was going to get the majority of the reps, probably would have been a starter at the inside linebacker position. Well, that's going to have to be put on hold because it was announced on Saturday after the scrimmage that Javen Wright is out indefinitely with what is being disclosed as a health condition that they are working through.
The indefinite thing is what makes me sad.
Yeah.
For him. I mean, yes, obviously the team, but the kid.
Right. For a kid that was trending in the direction of
you just
going to have a black shirt.
Ankle sprain. 2 to 3 weeks. Oh, right. Okay. He'll heal. Yeah.
Now, Matt Rule did say he should be okay. He just can't play right now. They said the outlook is that it can be resolved and he'll be back at some point, but he'll be out for right now. So, again, immediately you go right to Javen Wright and you feel for the guy. It's one thing if this just happens and you haven't dealt with any injuries at all, which, that's crushing in itself because of the momentum that Javen Wright, and we remember seeing him at the end of last year too. The guy had built himself into not only a linebacker that was going to have a major contribution to this defense, but it's been said on several occasions from guys that I don't think just throw that out there because they want to pump a kid up, between Matt Rule and Tony White, that he's an NFL type guy. Now, that this news doesn't mean he won't be, but you just hate to see setbacks when a kid is on the cusp right there of breaking through and again, replacing some pretty damn good linebackers. So for him, you feel awful. Now, as we look at that position, it's a position that I think Matt Rule is still extremely high on. It's a position, though, going into the spring, and Jimmy, you remember this because between myself, Gary, and you, we had the conversation of areas that would be question marks. The corner opposite of Tommy Hill and inside linebacker, because there are naturally going to be questions when you graduate two extremely
Two
good
guys you'd love to have this year.
Nick Henrich, but more importantly, Luke Reimer, who was just a terror on the field. And Nick Henrich, I don't want to dismiss his impact as well, but he was a guy that was
dudes to have on your team.
Yep.
Not just for what they do productivity-wise, but just good dudes to have on the team. It's hard to replace that.
Well, and when you're replacing that, you have to look at guys that most likely, because essentially Luke Reimer, because he had that real weird staph infection last year, so he missed a couple of games. Nick Henrich was battling injuries too. So maybe the silver lining is you did see guys like Mekhi Bear get a lot of reps last year. Mentioned Javen Wright getting a lot of reps last year, a lot of significant reps last year. Bear started last year. I think Buddha started. If not, he essentially was out there as a starter. So you have to look at the depth of that position, losing a key guy like Javen Wright for the immediate future. When he returns, we don't know. But the good news is you do have Mekhi Bear back again, and he's a guy again with starting experience, and he had a lot of good moments last year too. Stephon Thompson, the Syracuse transfer, who obviously understands the Tony White system, is a big one. But now for a guy that I think we were very, very high on, and for good reason, because every time the coaching staff brings up players that have turned heads, especially at that position, you don't get that far down the list before they bring up Vincent Shavers. And this is talking about those Miami guys. Vincent Shavers, now you get to a position where still asking a high school player to play inside linebacker at the Big Ten level is still a big ask. Regardless of how good the guy has looked, that body is still developing into a Big Ten linebacker. But I think now you are looking at a situation where Vincent Shavers going from, this is a guy that if we need can provide some stuff. Matt Rule even said, this was before the injury to Javen Wright, or the health condition of Javen Wright, had said that he doesn't see any reason to redshirt Vincent Shavers, meaning he's probably going to be an impact.
He's saying we're going to need him.
But I would agree with what Gary said last week, that Vincent Shavers, if anything, because if it's kind of a crowded room, that you don't need to force him in there, but he could be a terror on special teams, which I still think is going to be a significant role for Vincent Shavers. But now all of a sudden you're looking at him as a guy that is most likely going to rotate more in. His role obviously got that much more important because of the news that we learned on Saturday. And that's not to take anything away from Gage Stinger. Gage Stinger has built himself up body-wise too, where he's been talked about on several occasions.
Well, they're going to need everybody.
They are.
I mean, that's
and
basically
even,
yeah, you're going to need everybody. It's not going to be just one guy.
Well, and even Vince Genatone, who transferred, is a local guy too, transferred this summer into the program, I should say. Well, transferred last winter, I'm sorry. But now part of the program as well. You have guys, the only thing is, other than Mekhi Bayer and Stephon Thompson with another school, you're losing those game reps in this system when you don't have a Javen Wright. And so from the standpoint of where Javen's trajectory was, but also his experience from a year ago, you've got that much less experience at that position. You know it, being a college football guy, that position, especially in this conference, and especially with what Nebraska did so well last year in stopping the run, is huge.
Playing a 3-3-5, one of those threes is going to be very important to make everything work. And so it hurts. I mean, it hurts no matter what. That's an obvious, but you have to see it as somebody's opportunity to step up, and then you maybe find out about, whoa, I didn't know this person had this in him. It's what you got to hope for. And that's the job of the coaches, to kind of get him ready. It's kind of a next man up mentality. And you just hope that Javen Wright is able to come back as soon as he can. But yeah, I saw that indefinitely. I never like seeing that.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what it is, it's when they say indefinitely, your heart just kind of drops.
Yeah, you just kind of shake your head and think, my God, this kid just get a break, because
that's
when
what
he's been on the field, he's been good.
Thinking.
Yeah,
he's thinking the same thing.
Right.
He's probably, when they have the conversations with Tony White, Matt Rule, and that's probably all they're saying. They're crushed. They're heartbroken.
Well, and we had this conversation about Teddy Prohaska as well, as at some point there can be that unfortunate injury history stacks up to the point that you start wondering, is this just part of your path? Yeah. Am I ever going to be healthy, to where can you ever get yourself to a point where it is behind you technically, but you're always thinking, when could the other shoe drop? Does that make you hesitant in what you do? Does that make you a little more cautious in what you do, as opposed to being able to play carefree? I would never blame anybody for going about it that way, because your body can only take so much before you are a little hesitant with types of things like that. Again, without knowing the full extent of the medical condition, I don't want to pretend that I know what his future looks like, but I guess if there is one redeeming quality about everything that he's gone through, is, I mentioned this earlier, he's kept a very positive outlook on it. He's got a bunch of people in his corner, and reason you want things to work out for him.
Right. You want to see it work out for him, at least just before he's done at Nebraska that you see it work out for him. Whether he goes on to a successful professional career, whatever he does,
Yeah.
you just want to see him get a chance because yes, he can help the team, but think of the kid, all the work he's put in. You just want to see things work out for them, just so you could say at the end, look, you know what, that kid battled back from so much, and it times out perfectly with the ascension of the program. That yes, if he's able to come back, then like you guys were talking about last week, the senior class, why they are so hungry to end this drought and get to a bowl game. And it's so simple as so these kids' final game in a uniform is at a bowl game. You win it, great, but that's not the point here. So you're hoping the same thing for Javen Wright and that he's able to come back at some point and have a happy ending to this thing, because right now you're just bummed out. Yes, the fans are bummed out because it's their team, but they're bummed out because you can see the anguish when Matt Rule is talking about it. It's tough.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like, I know you're not either, but I don't want to make it sound like anytime someone gets injured that, you know, we don't feel as bad for them if they didn't have an injury history or anything like that.
No, it just adds to it.
And then we immediately go to how will this impact the team? But there are certain people, especially Teddy Prohaska and now Javen Wright, you know they've gone through things before, and you just want to see them have an off season with no injuries at all, and then a full season where they don't have to worry about that, because this is going to be a season for Javen Wright that is probably going to indicate if he's going to be doing this for a career. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we've seen him play, when he has been healthy, you can see something there. And the fact that there are a lot of guys that's
why you're sad for him.
Well, and watching a lot of these guys in the offseason when they've had a chance to get to the podium and talk, and you get to see them physically in the work that they put in the summer with their bodies. Javen Wright is one of those dudes that you saw, you're like, damn, that guy is, I mean, he is cut.
He's made the most of his opportunity.
Yeah.
And
so
that's why there's no reason to apologize for feeling bad, because, and yes, you should look at how it impacts the team, because that's what they're doing. That's their job.
And this is a position, again, going into the season after last year, knowing that Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer would not be with this team.
And also the thing you said in here, and I started thinking this when you wrote it, when you were telling me kind of what you were thinking, I said to myself, this is why I always say, if they're healthy, this is what I think will happen. Or because right now you see this and you're like, are they going to stay healthy? Is this a sign of the kind of year it's going to be? Which would be the one thing that could unravel so much of what they want to do. They'll still be better, but if it is an injury-plagued season, that really would be disheartening, because I do believe really that they're doing everything the right way and putting themselves in a great position to have a very successful season.
Well, and when we come back, we got to hit a break here, but when we come back, there's something that Matt Rule talked about when looking at certain areas of the team when it comes to depth. And he didn't specifically call out the inside linebacking position, but he did mention a position. But this is more of a philosophy, I think, for Matt Rule that probably doesn't get enough credit. And it might show up and might pay big-time dividends this year as we get into that. Coming up in hour two, more on what Matt Rule had to say about the scrimmage. Also, the plans of how they will handle any type of quarterback announcement. But more importantly, a guy that has been brought up and was talked about in high regard, what his role might be in 2024. Mentioned a couple of individuals this week and also making some headlines locally about their praise for not only Matt Rule, but what this season could be for Nebraska. Oh, yeah, we are just going to give the Nebraska love fest because it's game week, even though it's not Nebraska game week.
Well, also, it's an Omaha radio station.
That's true.
Usually how it goes.
That's also true. Do you have some thoughts on some NFL preseason games over the weekend of what you can take from some good performances, but also what you have to be realistic about? We'll get into all of that as we return here. Hour number two. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley, 1620 The Zone.
Update time, Monday edition, week 0 countdown edition. Still a little bit scarce, though. It's a little bit of slim pickings in the sports world until football fully is here. But the Little League Classic was last night, and the Tigers rallied late to knock off the Yankees.
Hey, did you guys hear the kids broadcast of that? I caught it this morning, or of the final play. They had the kids network.
were calling it?
They had a kids network.
Oh, we're really screwed at play-by-play job.
Oh, I'm telling you, we are, because the call better than anything you would have heard on Big Ten Plus too.
Oh, I gotta look that up.
You know how they always do the BTN Plus, and they usually do like this, or the old Student U broadcast. This thing was fantastic. It was on point. Usually there's like an awkward pause. You don't know who the hell hit the ball and stuff. You could tell that broadcast, they were ready for that moment.
I gotta look that up.
It was amazing.
That's cool.
A lot of people like me yelling at the TV, how come this kid gets to call these games and I'm sitting here?
Oh, yeah.
Who is this? I hate my life. I'm going to bed.
Oh, I definitely heard that.
Yep,
I'm screwed.
All these damn Syracuse kids, literally, they're kids.
Just need them to flunk out.
Preseason NFL Week 2 in the books. Caleb Williams showed out a little bit and had his first touchdown in a Bears uniform. Nick, any overreactions to his performance?
Oh, I'll save those. I got them. You bet.
Preview.
You bet. That's a tease.
So a couple WNBA noteworthy events over the weekend. Caitlin Clark broke the rookie assist record, passing a record that stood for 26 seasons since 1998, and had her 225th assist and counting. She now sits at 232.
They lose?
They won.
They won.
Yes, they did. They won the game.
Yeah.
They're, I think, almost 3 games away from being 500?
13 and 15, I think. Couple under. So they're
calm your jets,
scratching
Bluter.
and clawing.
They're not firing anybody there in Indiana.
Angel Reese also making some news. Fastest player in league history to reach 20 double-doubles. The rookie class seems to be doing quite well in the WNBA this year.
Yes, they are.
Nebraska, Creighton, and UNO women's soccer teams all got their first victories of the year yesterday. So congratulations to all of those programs on the young season getting things rolling. And the Storm Chasers finished off a series victory over the Louisville Bats. They are now 74-44 and will head to Buffalo this week to play the Buffalo Bisons.
Oh, I thought they're just heading to Buffalo for a little summer vacation.
I'm sure they would like a little
check out some preseason football.
See the new Bills Stadium that's being jumped through some tables.
Oh, I totally forgot that they're building it.
There's usually some pretty good debauchery that goes on at the Buffalo Bills tailgates.
Yes. Lots of stories.
Both
people,
inside the stadium and outside the stadium.
Eating weird things outside the stadium at their tailgate.
That's one way to put it. Outside of cars,
dude,
in between cars.
Seriously, leave her alone. We will give you a brat and something to eat.
If you don't know, I would say go ahead and look it up, but I don't want you to be at work or get in trouble with people around you. So just take our word for it.
Somebody had a meal and the food wasn't ready yet.
People have good times at Buffalo Bill tailgates, apparently. That's one thing if it's just one isolated incident.
After going to some of those porta potties, I still question his sanity. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Peter. You mentioned Caleb Williams. So there were a couple of notable performances this weekend.
I didn't bring it up. Just going to let you do it. Let you roll.
I will get
I'll
get to Caleb here in a moment. Bo Nix, though. Bo Nix.
The Broncos have their next Elway.
Do your thing. Now it was
terrible uniforms, but
I know. How
do you screw that up? Everyone told them what to do for years, and they still found a way to screw it up.
They look like Syracuse, man. They not.
You know
and if you're a Syracuse fan, they do. They look exactly
CFL
like Syracuse.
Just put a bunch of patches for Canadian businesses on their uniforms.
Little Boise State-esque, except it's not royal blue; it's navy blue. But
Tim Hortons sticker.
But Bo Nix, who, when we talked to our good buddy Parker Gabriel, had mentioned that I don't think he was making the prediction, but he was essentially saying if the quarterback situation started as such, which would be Jarrett Stidham starting the season and then Bo Nix coming in at some point, that would maybe be where conventional wisdom would point you to at that time. I'm going to say something about preseason here in a moment, but Bo Nix is essentially playing himself into Sean Payton's funhouse, meaning Sean Payton is watching what Bo Nix is doing and seen a lot of things that he likes a quarterback to do, but then you add the little element of athleticism that Bo Nix can do, a little scrambling, can use his legs to extend plays and to get first downs, that there is that ability to not completely rely on your athleticism where you're giving up on routes and what have you. But Bo Nix,
But it's there for you. Extend
it
the
is.
play.
And I'll tell you what Sean Payton really likes, 77% completion percentage.
Better than the guy he had last year.
Yeah, slightly. And the other thing is not turning the football over, too. Now, Jarrett Stidham.
People forget turnovers are bad.
Stidham started the previous week's preseason game, and then Bo Nix came in. So they wanted to go the other way this last week.
Was this last night, by the way?
Yes, it was.
Damn it. I missed it.
Against the Packers.
I know. I wanted to watch.
No Jordan Love, though.
Because we get the Packers here, right?
Packers scored 2 points, by the way.
I thought I heard 2.
Yeah, they got 2. But again, no.
2-run homer.
I
by
would
Paul
love to
Molitor.
bag on the Packers, but again, this is going to go to my point about preseason football anyway. But Jordan Love did not play. But Bo Nix, good on him. I think so far for the rookie quarterback class and what we've seen, Bo Nix has been, I think, as steady across the board as you've seen. And then I also don't want to forget that this has surprised me a little bit because I wasn't necessarily all that high.
27-2.
Yeah. But Jaden Daniels has also looked really good. I wasn't that high on Jaden Daniels, at least right out of the gate. And I'll get to preseason here in a bit. But Jaden Daniels in the preseason, number-wise, has looked very, very good.
Where is he at?
Washington.
Okay.
Yeah. With Marcus Mariota. And can you name the third-string quarterback there?
Kerry Conklin. Gus Farrat.
You guys remember Jeff Driscoll?
Jay Schrader. I was good. Jeff
Oh,
George.
Yeah, Jeff Driscoll. Sam Hartman's on that team, too. So they got a good quarterback situation there. Jaden Daniels better work out.
Billy Palmer.
Now to Caleb Williams, because everybody got a chance to see his scramble for the touchdown, as Peter mentioned, and it was cool. I saw a lot of that stuff with Justin Fields, so that stuff doesn't do much for me. It doesn't. And hopefully people saw.
Harbaugh used to run once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, you're just kind of you're going this way, then that way. You're zigzagging, and all of a sudden, you're pump faking before you realize you're across the line of scrimmage, and you realize that you have 2 big hog mollies in front of you. You're like, oh, let's take the convoy into the end zone. I saw a lot of that with Justin Fields. He usually would rip off like a 45, 50-yard touchdown run because all would break down. What I was more impressed with, and what I've been impressed with in the limited time that Caleb Williams has been in, because you don't see this in Chicago a lot, the touchdown pass that he had, I'm sorry, the pass that set up the touchdown that he had on that same drive was a lot more impressive, where he stepped up in the pocket, it collapsed, he spun out of it, but still stuck with the pattern, found Rome Odunze down on the sideline, rookie to rookie, which was great, but not giving up on the play, which he could have just sprinted, probably got himself 10 to 15 yards, ended up throwing a dart down the sideline to Rome Odunze. Now, what I've watched with Caleb Williams, and again, this is through a Bears fan's eyes.
I like him, by the way. Rome
I think he's going to be great. I got into a little debate with my Viking friend this weekend. He's like, hasn't played a game.
God, has a team.
It's like, you guys got 1 additional wide receiver and Keenan Allen. I'm like, oh, I got 3. He goes, yeah, but he's a rookie. He hasn't played a game. I'm like, well, you're right, but
your whole team's hurt.
Looks
I
pretty
don't
good.
remember the last time a team had this rough of a training camp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, between tragedy, I mean, you literally have a defensive back get shot and die. That's awful.
Sad.
It's very, very awful. Then you got guys going down with ACLs. Yeah, even Brian Flores, who I think is a fantastic defensive coordinator, you probably need a little bit more to work with in the secondary there.
Mhm.
Begging John Randall to come out of retirement.
But
you still got it.
Watching Caleb in the pocket has me cautiously optimistic, because you got to remember, going back to the only guy that had some sort of a pocket presence, or at least that was his game, was Jay Cutler. And we all knew where Jay Cutler liked to throw the ball to the other team. Jay Cutler's pocket presence was fine.
Can't rail on my fellow Yorkie dad.
What? Oh, that's right. Yorkie. That's true. I forgot about that.
After that, I was like, you're all right.
There's a lot of things I've tried to block out of the Jay Cutler experience, because I was one of the Jay Cutler apologists till the bitter end, and then finally I couldn't take it anymore. But he was really good in the Very Cavalieri. That's where he really shined.
Which is all that matters.
Trubisky, awful in the pocket. Trubisky would anytime Trubisky would actually step up in the pocket, have a correct read, and he'd find the open receiver, and the guy would be wide open. This is where I think Matt Nagy got a bum rap because they schemed okay. Trubisky would airmail it like 10 feet above his head. And so he would miss the most basic throws. And that happened his entire time. Then you had Justin Fields pat the ball. That first guy's not open. He was immediately looking where he could run and where he could take off. And to give him credit, at times, and we're seeing the same thing in Pittsburgh, by the way, at times he would be able, because he's just so much better and faster than a lot of people that are out there, that he'd be able to get away from it and be able to create a big play. But when he was conduced to the pocket and had to make plays, he was lost, would either take a sack or have the ball stripped. His ball security was terrible. In a small sample size, the pocket presence of Caleb Williams looks so much different than anything Chicago's had. I mean, it's just something as simple as that, where he seems disciplined in the pocket. He uses his athleticism to move out of the pocket if it does collapse on him, to create the play still downfield as opposed to taking off. And his accuracy, I think, has been pretty good. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He throws off his back foot a lot, but they'll fix that.
Yeah. And that's where I think maybe he relies. I said Justin Fields relied on his athleticism when it came to running. I think Caleb Williams, things that he got away with in college, that's a good point, Jimmy.
Oh, but
because
Pat does that. Yeah, but everyone can't be Pat Mahomes.
Okay, and I got some thoughts on that as well. But on preseason in general, I'm watching some of these games that don't involve Chicago. It's hard to really get a read of guys like Caleb Williams, guys like Jaden Daniels, guys like Bo Nix, because they're playing a defense where you don't even have, in some occasions, don't even have their second stringers in.
Like the replacement players.
Exactly. I mean, these guys are, maybe half of them are on the 53-man roster, if even.
One of my first lessons was in 1989. The Cowboys went 4-0 in the preseason. They proceeded to go 1-15. Yeah. So that's what I think of preseason.
Our good friend Mike Patterson, the Omaha World Herald, also a diehard Bears fan.
There are many.
Text me right away after that game. 3-0 in the preseason. I'm like, yeah.
Super Bowl.
Actually 2.5-0, because remember they only played 2.5 quarters in the Hall of Fame game before that thing got soaked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, preseason, it's always been trending that way. It's officially worthless.
You just want it over with without anyone getting hurt for any team, and you can start the season.
And Jimmy, that's the main reason why people are not playing.
Even the teams I hate, I don't want anyone to get hurt on those teams.
I get it.
Yeah, who was it? The Ravens that won like 24 straight preseason games. What a bizarre.
Right.
If it was the Lakers, they would hang a banner for that.
They had to have cared a little bit.
Well, I think at some point you might have a little bit of pride in it, but I know any coach that is, and I would hope they all are, is 100% laser focused and serious about what they're doing. You would never weigh that even in comparison of, do I preserve our most important players, or do we go for what's the most recent preseason winning streak record? We got to go for the record.
All right, starters. Bet you didn't think you were playing tonight.
Where
you're wrong.
That's where you hope your dudes that, again, are trying to make the 53-man roster, it matters a lot to them. So they're going to go ahead and
statistically
take on that responsibility.
We're not going to win a Super Bowl. So let's try and get the one streak we can control.
But yeah, preseason's just garbage. Like I'm watching.
And that's the takeaway here.
Everybody losing their mind over the Patrick Mahomes behind the back pass.
I didn't.
If you're a Chiefs fan and he pulls, he even attempts that in the regular season, are you happy?
Goes the other way for 6.
If that happens, you want to talk about fully husk and somebody's running it back.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I hope, because again, this is
I will start
in
preseason
again. You can do fun things like that. You know, you could, because it's preseason, it doesn't matter. But the fact that he completed it, it wasn't.
Oh, did you see that? They're going to win all the Super Bowls.
Now, I will say this for him on that play. If he was to do just a normal shovel pass, there was a guy in that lane. But for a quarterback to even attempt thinking that this is going to go well, throwing it behind your back, my God, if he does that in the regular season, I'm a Chiefs fan, I don't care how much I love 15. I'm like, dude, stop. Because at some point, those things are not going to go your way.
Pretty delusional fans now.
Oh my God, is there anything he can't do? I hope he doesn't do that in the regular season.
Yeah, fix the roads in Missouri. Then I'll be someone who believes in you.
I was totally get off my lawn guy when I saw that highlight. I'm like, oh, that's way too risky.
Is this Calcutta or Columbia? Actually, it's an insult to
So
Calcutta.
I just thought it was so risky. I'm like, that you can't do that. But then I'm like, it's preseason. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But yeah, it was.
Buddy Ryan.
I don't
had a
even know if
bounty
it
on
was
him.
necessary. Just eat it. But instead, it's like, whoop.
No, seriously, eat it. That'd be. Eating
And the
football?
fact that it was to
Yummy.
Travis Kelce had made it that much more cool.
Oh, yeah.
You guys had the exact same reaction I did.
I just picture Travis.
Rest
in peace, Jerry Springer. But if that still existed, you have Travis on Jerry Springer, and then you have Taylor. Like, all right, well, let's bring out her new boyfriend. Here's Patrick, and they just start fighting. And,
whoa. Jerry. I will say,
it has Jackson Mahomes written all over it.
I was not.
All right, here he is. Bring him out. Here's Jackson.
God, what's he? He's just went totally radio silent after all his.
I think that was
by
on
design.
purpose.
By design, sure.
I do wonder
like Alf,
if
they stuck him in the basement, or me when
you're
company
not.
comes
You're
over.
allowed out in the sun once a week.
did anybody feed Jimmy?
We have company coming to the radio station. Quick, close the door to his office. Don't let him out.
Throw him some popcorn. He'll be fine. Does anybody think he might have paid off his brother and just said, "Hey, I need you to just stay away"?
I wouldn't be even remotely surprised.
I bet he mailed him to Abu Dhabi like normal.
Here's a few stacks. Just go away.
God, you can't even go out to.
You can hang out during the
bar.
holidays and stuff. We can still have family time. But man, what comes
We
in
got
games
you a
and
job,
stuff,
man.
man,
We were
just stay
going to
away.
run a Target in Helsinki. Like
Bought the whole
Missouri,
land.
Finland.
Oh, see, there you go, Patrick. Hey, I bought you a Chick-fil-A franchise.
You're going to go on a
I need
darkness.
you to really get into this, though.
In Copenhagen, and not the Copenhagen in a can either.
I'm sending you on a darkness retreat. It's extended, probably like 6 to 12 months.
My friend Aaron, he plays in the league too. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter who he plays for. He's just a friend. And anyway, he said, you'll like this.
Just got to find your way back.
You just go in a cave and you take this stuff. Apparently it's great.
Yeah, that's probably the best for all parties involved, that you don't see as much Jackson Mahomes. And I started wondering that the same thing last year of,
Sounds like a
I
movie.
wonder how much money he got to.
What happens when the
go
embarrassment
dark a little bit.
brother of an all-pro quarterback sends him back to coach
Well,
a
and-
little kid's team
And see,
in Ohio?
the appeal of having, you could just call the reality show the other Mahomes brother.
On E,
I mean, that
send
would
him back to
probably,
Dallas where he coaches.
I mean, hell, Travis Kelce
you can-
was in Catching Kelce.
You can merge it with the Friday Night Tykes because it is
Yep.
Texas, and have Jackson
Oh.
coach one of the little kid teams and then get in trouble for cussing out like those other coaches.
He'd be ridiculed by those other coaches. I don't know if Jack's could handle that.
Yeah.
He'd be Instagramming.
I'd watch it.
He'd be TikToking all the games.
Be rooting for the other teams.
Yeah, that's
Drop
yeah.
a play.
I don't know, guys. They got one more preseason week left, and
Get it over with.
I will
Good.
say that I'm
speaking
still,
of the Chiefs, by the way, it'll be Caleb Williams versus Patrick Mahomes on
Ooh.
Thursday. Bet you neither one of them play.
Yeah, probably. I'm not
If
still
Mahomes
not
plays,
a
sweep the
fan
leg.
of the additional regular season game. But if there was a positive from it, we get one less preseason game.
Yeah.
You're going to get one more regular season
Yeah.
game here. And
It's
They're
coming.
just-
Yeah.
before
They're
you
just
know
gonna
it,
play year round.
the Super Bowl is going to be right before spring break. I mean, that won't suck. First of all, I'm talking to a room here where none of us get spring break, so I don't know why it matters.
Yeah, somebody was talking to me about spring break not that long ago. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's August.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Not since the 90s.
Spring break.
Iowa JD says KC Chiefs have enough problems. A chicken strip basket, fries, and a water is $39 this year.
Oh my
Good
God.
Lord.
I believe it.
Does it come with a shot of something? Good Lord.
Do you get a free toaster with
Do you
that?
get a happy ending with that? Because I'm
That's
not
insanity.
talking about the gas from the concession food either.
And Iowa JD, who also is on the Vikings angst right now, said, you know why? You know who hasn't worked out well? JJ McCarthy. Why the Vikings drafted him? Well, JJ McCarthy got injured.
Yeah, he's worked about as well as Andrew.
I know
I'm
that
just
all
saying,
too
JJ,
well.
JJ McCarthy, yeah, is banged up. Are you a Vikings fan?
I'm a Colts fan, so
Oh, okay.
we've Anthony, Andrew. Nobody can stay healthy.
You got my dude. He's going to be your starting quarterback.
Oh yeah, Bean.
Oh yeah, he
he had a
pretty
nice
well.
again in preseason. But
I
yes,
might-
he did.
I might have a new team.
If we're
'cause I need
doing
one.
NFL preseason overreaction, then I think it is fair that we do bring up your guys' performance, though, because he did play well,
Mhm.
and it sounds like he'll have to play a little bit.
When you look at the hierarchy of Colts all-time quarterbacks, you have John Unitas, Peyton Manning,
Andrew Luck.
Jason Bean, Jack
He's up
Trudeau,
there. He's up there.
Art Schleister. Jimmy Harbaugh.
Is Sam Ellinger still there?
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, he got some reps in.
And they still got Flacco, right?
Yeah, it's Anthony, Flacco, Ellinger, and Bean are the 4 fighting for spots right now.
Let's go.
Bean should be the starter.
Let's go.
If they make Bean the starter, I will adopt the Colts as my new team.
With their injury history at that position, he might be suiting up week 4. We'll see.
Hey, wasn't Andrew Luck in Paris at the Olympics? I believe he was.
Wasn't?
Yeah, I believe he was.
He's kind of keeping busy.
And he looks good.
He
looks
doing
like he
well.
could still play.
Retiring early will do that for you.
He's the one guy that I assumed when he retired, I'm like, no, he's coming back. But now he's done.
I didn't think he would. The way he retired,
Really? Yeah.
something something happened that scared him into retirement. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's something he knew. The fact that he retired in a preseason game. I just thought he hated preseason so much. Like, I just don't want to do
I
this
wouldn't blame
anymore.
I remember it.
Do you have an Andrew Luck jersey?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you have 2?
Just the
home
one.
and away? Oh, okay.
I should get another one at some point for someone else, so I don't have to wear the sad Andrew Luck
Jeff
jersey
George.
all the time. But
Can't go wrong with
you get
Jeff
a cool
George.
Color Rush jersey.
I remember it was my sophomore year of college. I got all moved into my new place. I sat down. I was just taking a minute after a long day of moving, got a notification, and I was like, oh my God.
Went straight to bed.
This is the worst possible way that this school.
Okay, so speaking of jerseys real quick, and this goes back to where I led the show off with my son. He's influenced by he's got some bad eggs around the neighborhood because they're influencing him now to be a Chiefs fan.
No, you can't let him
I'm
do
not
that.
happy about that whatsoever.
No bike trips.
We got one kid who actually I call him a Dylan Raiola fan because he's got the hair just like Patrick Mahomes or Dylan Raiola. But he is a huge Mahomes and huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. Then our next door neighbor is as well, and their entire family is as well.
Gross.
And so he's hanging out with them, and they're doing all these Chiefs things. So now he told me he only likes 2 teams right now, and that's the Bennington Badgers and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I did something that I'm actually kind of proud of because it apparently worked. No. So those 2 highlights, the Caleb Williams pass to Rome Odunze and then the subsequent run, I showed him that. And I said, hey, do you want to see some cool football? And then I showed him that, and he was watching. I go, but you know what? That's the Bears, and you're not a Bears fan. And he goes, no. I like 3 teams. I like the Bennington Badgers, the Chiefs, and the Bears.
Oh.
And I'm like, because you just saw it. I kept saying Caleb Williams. So this thing better work out with Caleb Williams because this is my only link to keep him in the Bears fandom, which is obviously going to be a very sad life for him, but misery loves company.
Yeah. Here's what you do at night when he actually is asleep in his bed and you're massaging his calves with warm goat milk. You put the little earbuds on his ear.
He's bred for football glory.
And then you just put on the 1985 highlight video. You get some John Facenda, and you got to get that Chiefs crap knocked out of his head. So you got to do some hardcore,
you know what I need to show him is some days of Damon Heward.
The autumn wind is a Raider. I saw Andrew Luck play in 2012 against the great Chiefs team led by Romeo Cornell. Oh, I miss those days. Those were the best days. I love the Tyler Thigpen era.
Yeah, I see.
I did not give him enough time.
I need to show him highlights of Tyler Thigpen of throwing a pick 6 twice in one game, or Damon Heward
in 08 when
all
there
of
was
those would be amazing.
30,000 there and so many no shows because it was 4 degrees at kickoff. That's what we need. We need those days back.
I could do, and I hate to see season-ending, career-ending injuries, but I could show him pictures of when his mom and myself were at a Bears-Chiefs game where the Bears came back and won with Jake Cutler, but they also the defense also hurt Jamal Charles to where he was never seen again.
That's how scary they were. It's like the 85 defense. Danny White had a neck brace by the end of the game because they were just coming at him and they won 44-0. They sacked him 77 times in one game.
Oh, I still got some cards to play, yeah. I still got some cards to play.
I'm behind team
I'm behind
Handley brainwash. I'm behind.
But I did. I subtly showed him those highlights, and then I guilt tripped him. I said, "But you don't care about this team because this is not the Chiefs. This is the Bears, and you're not a Bears fan anymore." And then he was quick to point out, no. After
hold on there, sperm donor.
After for weeks, he told me he was no longer a Bears fan. Now he's back on the bandwagon. See.
Good job.
And then
and my wife says I give up too easy on it. Hell no, I didn't.
No.
I brought him back to Bears fandom.
Then you show him the behind.
And then
I'll
probably be taken away for child abuse by doing that, by bringing him back to Bears fandom, because that kind of is.
this behind the back pass, it's performative BS. Now here is some real football.
Look at Tom Waddle against the Cowboys in 1991.
Yep.
Dude had 4 concussions in one game. Didn't stop him.
Yep.
Smelling salt right
Look
back
at the smelling
there.
salt.
And that grass, by the way, painted mud. They were tough. Soldier Field had painted mud for the last 8 weeks of the season back in the day.
When we come back, we are going to talk Nebraska quarterback. Does it matter when Matt Rule announces QB1? But more importantly, and Gary and I got in this a little bit last week, Jimmy and I are going to talk about it too, the QB2, and a guy that was brought up a lot this week. What does it mean for the depth charts of quarterback? Yeah, that's what we get. We start getting into the depth chart here, and we will do so coming up next year on 1620 The Zone. Going to be getting a camp rundown with Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald, less than 1 hour. Also, Jacob Bigelow. We're going to do our friend or foe segment as we're talking Ohio State with Patrick Murphy of Bucknuts.com of the 24/7 Sports. That is all still to come.
But hold on, Nick. You can get some California love because fall is just around the corner. 1620 The Zone is giving you a chance to win season passes to Nebraska's favorite fall attraction. It's Vallis Pumpkin Patch. You could win 2 2024, that's this year, by the way, season passes to Vallis and enjoy all the fall family fun that Vallis has to offer. Enter to win right now at 1620thezone.com. That reminds you, Inglewood, always up to no good.
Do you think people in California appreciate Vallis Pumpkin Patch the way we do?
No, because
one would hope.
They probably get their pumpkins at Safeway.
That's probably true, actually. I don't even know. I'm laughing at that.
Because, I mean, where I grew up, there were no pumpkin patches. A pumpkin patch was H-E-B. You can go buy it in the grocery store and everything. So when we moved up, when I moved up to the Midwest, what is this pumpkin patch thing all about? And so I finally discovered it. I was like, oh, it's literally just a place where they have pumpkins.
You know what? We're, you could call us a frugal family. We're more of a skinny bones. Well, we just go.
Like not eating?
No, there's a place in Blair.
Oh.
Yeah. Vallis is a machine, man. Vallis is an absolute machine.
And on October 12th, everybody will be there. Will you?
It is a machine. It is quite the spectacle.
I've been locked in on the food updates, the new items.
Oh yeah, what do we got?
Speak to me.
I mean, I always know they've got the turkey leg.
Big turkey.
Yeah, looks like they added
like in medieval times.
Little strawberry rhubarb pie, and I saw a pressed panini. Is coming.
Oh, they have a panini press.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So there's going to be some new stuff.
We should do the show live there.
Ooh,
I'm sure that's going to
be live from the pie bar.
You know what? There's probably already would be a line at 6 a.m.
Be kind of scary though at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
There might be some critters.
Awesome.
It would be dark at that point.
Yeah, that's my point. I'm not saying anything against Vallis. It sounds like a hell of a time. I've never been. I've lived here 2 years.
I've been a couple times.
I had free passes.
I've not been though yet. Now that we have a young kid, which makes no sense. You would think I'd been there more times now with a kid, but that's an extra guy. We gotta
be careful.
We gotta entertain. I know.
We did take the puppy
we're easing into
the shirt that I was wearing the other day. We took the puppy to the Lewisburg cider mill a couple years ago. Did an impromptu photo shoot with her.
Wait, you took your dog to a cider mill?
Yeah. Why not?
Did she have, or he? It's a he, right?
She.
Oh, it's a she. Yeah.
She. There's no size of that sausage on her.
Did she have a good time?
Oh yeah, she had a great time.
Okay. She want to go back?
I think so.
She wants to try a cider fight.
Yeah. Define want to go back.
I don't know. So one of the questions that Matt Rule had on Saturday was, this is actually now kind of turned into the black shirt question.
It's the new black shirt.
Have you guys named black shirts yet? Well, now that new question is going to be single digits, which supposedly they've decided
why I created
on
it. So you stop asking about the black shirts.
I know the guy's a genius.
Mission accomplished.
So the quarterback question to me has like the similarity of the black shirt question. At the end of the day, does it really matter? You're going to know. Eventually, you're going to find out. You probably have a good idea of who would be getting the black shirts. There might be a surprise here and there, but you could typically say if let's say they're giving out 15 of them, I bet you could name 12 of them. It's the same thing with the quarterback position right now. You know who's going to be named the starting quarterback. So does it really matter if Matt Rule makes it this big ceremony? If he
should put on the depth chart just to mess with people.
Oh man.
Or Heinrich Harper.
Oh man. Can you imagine a week from today if we see that first depth chart and it says or?
As long as you tell Dom first. Let Dom know so he can be in on it.
Oh yeah. Because it would be a bit.
Yeah.
It would be a fantastic bit. In fact, in a way, I hope Matt Rule does it because everybody who knows will know, but there will be some people out there, maybe casual observers or in the national media are like, wait, what? What's going on here? What's interesting, and I'm glad you brought up the or part because there's going to be no or. It's Dylan. We know that. We don't need this grandiose statement of
buglers at
he is. Now they are having the Boneyard Bash this Saturday. Their game, nice. Their big game scrimmage. Maybe it's now. See, I think it's going to be announced before that. I don't think it really matters though.
They have a little concert afterwards.
They did.
Little Phil Collins, a little Easy Lover.
Year? I think they did.
Easy Lover's a banger. By the way.
Great song.
Great song.
By the way, I always used to think when they were saying, wait, God dang it, Jimmy. Now you did it to me.
Now you've done it.
I can't move on until I address this real quick. I know I have like ADD right now. Okay, so
That's what our generation.
oh wait, never mind. See, I'm stupid. No, I was thinking of Invisible Touch.
Ooh, Invisible Touch is
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah, never mind. I'll circle back to that. That's an end of the hour segment.
Yeah, Phil Collins in the 8 o'clock hour.
Yeah. So Matt Rule, who again said, didn't seem like it was really weighing heavily on his mind. And then he was asked if there's any kind of advantage or disadvantage of announcing, the week of, or not at all. And Matt Rule basically said what we all know, and that's kind of the team knows. And Sam asked a question that Matt Rule was into when it came to has anybody truly separated themselves? Have they stood out to where you're like, okay, this guy's separated himself? And that's where he went into the quarterback room. He mentioned that they have three guys. The cliche, they got three guys that they can win with.
They let Heinrich sit in,
and he
gets to participate.
Well, and he brought up Heinrich as far as you have a guy who has won and who has that experience.
I just want him to be allowed in the meetings.
Yeah, I believe he's very much in the meetings.
Okay, that's all I care about.
But he was actually very high on Danny Kaelin, and there was a follow-up question about Danny Kaelin where he did say something about Danny Kaelin that I think in this conversation of quarterback play and Dylan Riley, and trust me, I get it. I'm all about 15. I think he is going to be fantastic.
He's swell.
I've told a lot of people the guy's different. He's going to look different,
nifty dude.
And I truly believe that. I maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I truly believe that this guy is going to be special. But
I hope not for this show's sake. I don't know if Gary could handle that if it doesn't work out. He might just quit.
I don't think Gary'd be alone either. I think there are a lot of people.
What do you think he dropped that S-bomb that one day about the Colorado?
Yeah,
game? He's not wrong.
I think a guy that before Dylan decommitted from Georgia in that quick turnaround and committed to Nebraska, there was the Danny Kaelin conversation of a guy that was probably not ready to start out of the gate as a true freshman, but would have a very good true freshman year of learning the system to where you handed it over to him the following year. And that's the type of development that he still needed. Now, again, if Dylan doesn't come here, you're probably still seeing Chubba Purdy. I would say is still around. Chubba Purdy's probably your starting quarterback in 2024, and you've got Danny Kaelin waiting in the wings, learning, and ready to take over the reins of that offense his redshirt freshman year.
Man, that's a different alternate reality.
It is. But what is encouraging to hear is when that path changes, and remember, in the 11th hour, Danny was taking some visits elsewhere. And so you wondered if, with Dylan committing, is Danny going to stay in the mix? And he does. When a coach uses the word the it factor,
and not like the book.
It's intriguing to me because this is, again, a coaching staff that I don't think wants to necessarily prop up players unless it's justified. And I think there were other ways when Matt Rule was asked about Danny Kaelin that he could promote the work that Danny Kaelin has been putting in without going off the deep end. But when you say the it factor,
he's saying this about Danny, right?
About Danny Kaelin.
That's cool.
And then he also said something that I think is very significant, that people do forget the type of conversations we were having about Danny Kaelin when it came to when he eventually gets his chance to run the offense. Again, this is before Dylan committed. Matt Rule said both Dylan and Danny Kaelin would be Sunday guys.
I remember that.
And him saying that on Saturday, doubling down that he's got the it factor, he's got the swag. He mentioned how he interacts with the team internally. He goes something about acapella. He's a good acapella singer, and then everybody's joining in. Seems like he's already got a lot of his teammates.
They're going to form a barbershop quartet?
He might perform the national anthem.
Can you win that?
But apparently, he's already got guys believing in him, following him. Now, I bring this up because it's a conversation that I know why we don't have about Danny Caitlin, because he's not a guy that we're going to see taking the first snaps against UTEP unless, something were to go wrong health-wise for Dylan.
Unless they're all in on the bit.
Right. That Danny Caitlin is a guy through this whole process is still getting some very valuable reps, developing, and
it's actually kind of nice. No pressure, just working and getting better.
Yeah, working under the radar. And based on some observations and from what we've heard from coaches, he's doing pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
So I would still hope that Heinrich Harburg is going to be your QB2. That Heinrich Harburg, that if something went bad, or again, the old Dylan's helmet comes off and you got to play a guy, that
pulls a Thurman Thomas.
That Heinrich comes in. This goes back to the game experience. This goes back to him understanding the offense, and then the improvements that he has made, and they're subtle, but they're there, that he would still be your guy. So you can preserve Danny Caitlin. You can keep that clock a year behind Dylan Raiola. So in a perfect world, you could keep Danny Caitlin and maybe have a couple of years as him as a starter. How much he develops and how ready he is to play, and can he be patient for his opportunity, is going to be interesting. But I know a lot of people are now wondering, if Matt Rule's saying that, does that put Danny Caitlin in a situation where he could be a little bit higher up on the depth chart than what we maybe originally thought? Could he be the number 2?
Could he be or?
Essentially, yeah. Could he be or? And I would say this, you have 4 games opportunity-wise to play Danny Caitlin without burning a red shirt.
Stick him in there.
I think we might see that.
Maybe it's UTEP. You said it'll be 34-10. So once it's 34-10, it's like, hey, kid, a couple series.
I did say 34. Man, I got to stick to that now.
Rick said 42-10, so Rick has them covering.
Yeah.
You don't. That doesn't mean it was 34-3 and they had the cover.
It's got to look good. Covering would be obviously good, but it's got to look good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think
no, I like that.
It was an interesting conversation that Matt Rule had about Danny Caitlin that I think we're reminded. Oh yeah, there was another freshman that, as much as we weren't as high on him to play right away as we are Dylan,
he's pretty darn good.
Yeah, but there was a guy there.
Always pretty darn good.
So could there be an or in the backup? I know Gary asked that question. I think there will be. I do. I think there will be. And I think Danny Caitlin will be in consideration in certain situations. But I know that, like they did last year, and I think they did a fantastic job for a lot of players, especially on the defensive end, where they did not burn red shirts. Even when it looked like, man, when they get in, when they play, they're playing well.
And this is why we're red shirt, because they're going to play even better.
Yep. I do think that they get some looks at Danny Caitlin in some moments in a game. And I think it's going to be a good thing for him, obviously. But
like, hey, what'd you think? All right, let's go watch the film later.
I know it's that it factor that he brought up, and the fact that he's saying that Danny Caitlin is going to be an NFL guy. It's something to keep your eye on. Again, not to disrupt QB1's
no, there's a positive
momentum. But if you've got a young guy who's also a true freshman that is developing at a good pace to where maybe he's even ahead of where you thought he would be, that's only great for the future. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge, as we all know, is can you keep him engaged enough that he's going to want to be here for the long haul? And
we're just showing some love to one of our guys. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, how much of this
is
just
kid. He's a good player.
Right.
They're lucky to have him. He's lucky to have him.
And I think that's a lot of what Matt Rule was talking about as well. Not only his ability, but just his presence amongst that team. It's such a young part of his career. It's not nothing. It's definitely not nothing. Going to be back coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, talking to Evan Blank, get his thoughts on what he heard between what Marcus Satterfield spoke on Friday. Matt Rule after the 137 play scrimmage. His thoughts on the Javen Wright injury. Also, running backs continues to be a discussion. Some interesting stuff said by Matt Rule on that front we'll get into. Also, a couple guys that are a little bullish on Nebraska. One might surprise you as well. We'll get into all of that as we continue here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, it is that time of the year as we get excited for the NFL and for the college game. But right now, well, you've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and on YouTube TV. That is 3 weeks of watching any game you want. Doesn't matter if you're a Bears fan, a Chiefs fan, a Vikings fan, Packers fans. It doesn't matter. You can watch 3 weeks of the NFL free of charge on the NFL Sunday Ticket when you get in with FanDuel. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Go to FanDuel.com, use the promo code ZONE. That's FanDuel.com/zone to download America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Iowa. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Yeah, okay, this is a good song, but I got to get to this real quick before we get into the break because we're way behind. That's my bad. That's my bad.
We got easy luck.
So in the invisible touch, it goes, "She seems to have an invisible touch." Yeah.
Mhm.
When I was young,
Bang.
I used to think that they were saying she seems to have something, and then they say tough blank, tough S8.
Yeah.
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 That's what I always thought it was. And so if you listen to it, it sounds like he's saying tough.
Well, I told you I used to work with the tiny people. These are children, by the way. So going back to our discussion on Thursday or Friday about the other tiny people. But
Mhm.
anyway, Uptown Funk.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
sure I say it right.
Whoa, you thought Bruno was just dropping F-bombs?
No. I didn't. But
Oh.
some of my little kids that I worked with.
Yeah.
So this 6-year-old, I loved him. He was the best. He comes over and he's singing Uptown. He thought that funk was something else.
Yeah.
And one of my staff asked, "Are you going to correct?" And I was like, "No, it's hilarious." Why? They're just words. Greatest word in the English language, and he gets it. He's 6.
He just opened. He was the first ever show at the Intuit Dome last week.
Phil Collins?
Bruno.
Oh, same thing.
The
That would've been
Intuit Dome, huh?
It sounds like it was kind
Well,
of
all
a
those toilets,
massive-
remember?
Sounds like it was a massive disaster because they have their own
Oh.
app for getting in, and it
Okay.
totally
Oh.
crashed. And
You mean instead of tickets going in,
Bring
they
back
tear
paper
off the
tickets.
tickets. You get to keep the tickets as a keepsake to put in your Super Bowl program.
Two of the best lyrics that were confused on as far as myself and any friends. I think I told you before, the Renegades of Funk
Yes.
by Rage Against the Machine. My buddy thought it was the Redneck Kings of Funk.
Oh,
Yeah, we're the Redneck Kings of Funk. And then the other one, now this is again when I was young.
I don't think a Tom Morello is a redneck.
What do you guys remember? The Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now?
Yeah.
Hold Me Now. And they say like, warm my heart. I thought they were saying wash my car.
Which is a
please
wash my car. Stay with me. Oh, stay with me. Yeah, I always thought it was wash my car.
Yeah. Remember taking long walks.
I'm older and wiser now.
with my girlfriend in kindergarten to that song. I was like, if you love me, you'll give me your Pop-Tart. That was not a metaphor. She really had Pop-Tarts.
Evan Bland joins us in less than 30 minutes. When we come back, though, who is the latest to jump on the Nebraska football bandwagon? We'll tell you next.
Halftime, brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, the largest celebration of whiskey in the region. Omaha Whiskey Fest, September 21st?
28th.
Right? 28th.
28th.
28th, that's right. They said 21st. September 28th, OmahaWhiskeyFest.com. Go to it right now, buy tickets, all the stuff, as we try to beg the powers that be anywhere to get the whiskey people back here every week, because that was fun.
You mean the 2 hours afterwards?
Yes. If we were going into some sort of sweeps period, I recommend that.
I had fun.
We've already crossed the line with things we've said without whiskey. So what's whiskey gonna? We have a 7-second delay.
Yeah, I'll admit I was, because I hadn't eaten anything, and there was some good whiskey, but it was also of a higher volume.
Wasn't in the jar either.
Whiskey in the jar. Going to be talking to Evan Bland here in about 15 minutes. His weekly spot. We'll get his thoughts on what he has taken in over the last several days. Media availability on last Friday to watch a little bit of Husker practice. Of course, another closed scrimmage this past Saturday of 137 plays. Biggest news to come out of that one. Not that the scrimmage had anything to do with it, but Javen Wright is out indefinitely with a medical condition. So we'll get Evan's thoughts on all things Husker related. Speaking of Nebraska,
we live there.
We do live here, and we live in a state right now of cautious optimism
really nice
right now. Cautious. I mean, would you guys agree? There's cautious optimism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the conversations have been largely positive. I think it's always fair to be fair and balanced, of also understanding if certain things don't happen. Oh, is this for me?
No, I'm just giving that to you.
Oh, I thought you were handing me something like a news story.
Oh, no.
Of Fair and Balanced.
That's just it.
That's the good people on Fox.
Can you get the little ticking sound?
Yeah. I think there are definitely things to keep in mind. Like, for instance, I don't know if this registers on your guys' radar, but the second team offense had maybe 4 turnovers. Not good.
Not great.
That's 4 more than you'd like to have.
Right. We know that if the turnover thing is not cured, no matter how many big strides you make in other areas as a football program, that's going to hold you back.
Won't be cured as much.
Exactly. So there's still a lot of wait and see, but I think there's cautious optimism. But I think I'll call this the off season of Rule has been very, very positive, and it, I think, came to a head with what we all saw on Chasing 3, with the "This is why you lose" that has gone viral. And the conversation that came with that, this is why you lose, talking about when people are here, you get out of, the things that you know how to do. You quit working, you quit doing the things that you're taught to do, trying too hard, whatever it might be.
That's the stuff that should get you excited as a fan. Just the
And
little
it was,
things,
it was
attention to detail.
It was,
that's all you want.
It was true speak. And it was caught. It goes viral. There are a lot of people in various different outlets, whether we're talking about people who cover college football, NFL football, other sports. They see that, they hear that, they say, love that was brought up.
You said if they die, they die.
A lot of people who know Nebraska football understand, for the most part, that has been a losing program here in the last 6-7 years, because I'm sorry, until you get to 500 or better, you are a losing program. And I think this is the other part about
Jeff Fisher doing 8-8 stuff.
Yeah, even 8-8 would be great, or 6-6. But everything that Matt Rule has talked about from a positive side of where these guys are, he is quick to remind you that until they are not 5-7, they're still 5-7. Mm-hmm. And I thought even what he said over the weekend on Saturday of what he told the guys during the scrimmage, that they're this close to being a good team, but they're still not there. There's always, I don't even want to call it the dangling of the carrot, but it has a similar approach of, this is how good you can be. But I think there's been a very good balance of not letting these guys settle into what I think for the most part is a relatively positive narrative, whether you're listening to guys like Joel Klatt, who I don't know how you feel about it, Jimmy. I think Joel Klatt's a good college football. Yeah, I think he's a good college football guy.
Usually loves him some Nebraska.
And he does. I don't think he's pandering to the audience. I think he's calling it as he sees it, I hope. But he's very high on Nebraska. Now, he said he put Nebraska in his top 25 after he had a conversation with Matt Rule.
Still can't believe they blew it after they went for 2 in 2000. But I know he wasn't the quarterback that day, but he was around.
everything that you've heard come out of Matt Rule's mouth, like Pat McAfee, huge Matt Rule fan, because Matt Rule will talk football. There's always that feeling of, is he selling you a bill of goods? Is there? I've heard people at times that are not necessarily on board yet say, snake oil salesman. And until you get the fruits of the labor, that's fine. I mean, that's where Nebraska and Matt Rule have to prove some of those critics wrong. But the narrative continues to, I think, change the opinions, or at least show up on the radar of even some of the most staunch critics of Nebraska football in the past. So Colin Cowherd was talking with Urban Meyer. This was at the end of last week. And so on an appearance of The Herd, Urban Meyer was talking about a lot of reasons why you would want to join the Nebraska football program. He was talking about...
So old Herb was recruiting for Nebraska?
Yeah. Urban was...
Former Nebraska coach Urban Meyer?
Yeah. Remember that day against Oklahoma?
I do remember that
he was
day.
Here for
that
Big
was
Noon?
A hell of a weekend.
Oh,
yeah.
The amount of Urban, be our next head coach. Will you take the job? Did you meet with Trev before you came on set? All
How
of those
long
things.
before he goes to gate 25? Yeah.
So as he's talking about a lot of the things about the new facilities and things that he likes about Matt Rule, and again, talking about a lot of the highlights of why he, Urban, would want to join the Nebraska football program. There's also, it went back and forth with Colin and Urban Meyer about the history of the stadium, the fans.
Loves those troughs.
Urban brought up all those things. But it also was interesting because I'll give this to Colin Cowherd. He doesn't care who the guest is. He's not always going to play off of what he thinks. If Colin Cowherd completely disagreed, he would have said that. But also bringing up Dylan Raiola was part of the praise. That Colin Cowherd as well was very much on the same page with Urban Meyer, who has him as one of the college football teams to look out for. And the reason I bring this up is because
he's Urban Meyer.
Well, not even necessarily Urban Meyer. The Urban Meyer part of this doesn't surprise me as much because I think Urban Meyer has spoke very highly of Matt Rule and
Urban likes
Nebraska.
Football.
Yeah, and I think he understands what Matt Rule could potentially do at Nebraska. But he said that I thought it was interesting that he talked about why wouldn't it was. I mean, you're right. You said this earlier, Jimmy. Urban was in a way kind of giving a recruiting pitch to people out there for Nebraska. But where I thought it was interesting is that Colin Cowherd actually got into this and jumped on the ship with the Nebraska hype train, if you will, because he's always been, there was that famous label that he gave Iowa for a very long time as the fake ID club. And essentially, as he called him, a fake ID or a poser because they would schedule soft and then they would, win. They would build up a bunch of games that they would have as W's because they hadn't really played anybody. But when it came to playing somebody of significance, they wouldn't beat them. He's brought up Nebraska as being one of those places of why would you ever want to go to Nebraska when you could go to a USC? And Cowherd's, out there in LA.
Have you seen the traffic out there, Colin?
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about LA one segment? They scared me from going. I'll take Lincoln instead. I
thought it was interesting that he starts agreeing and citing a lot of the different things that, Urban Meyer brought up. And then, Colin Cowherd starts talking about how they're recruiting right now and talking about the history, how that can really be a big part. But more than anything, he brought up Matt Rule. And
then the Runza.
I think this is the one thing that people, it could be a curse, but I think right now is a blessing on how people look at Nebraska football. And when you have personalities like a Colin Cowherd, who's usually going to be a little bit more harsh on the Midwest teams that are not named Ohio State or Michigan.
And he will tell you that. I've literally heard Colin say that.
To me, this also goes to the Matt Rule factor. We talk about this a lot of a guy who knows football, a guy who can talk football, who can articulate a lot of his plan, his vision on how he wants to make a football team better. And you do have a little bit of that track record there at Temple and at Baylor for a guy that I think everybody celebrated, whether you were a you were interested in Nebraska or just interested in having good guys in college football, that was celebrated that he was back in college football after what was, a failure in Carolina.
And I think he belongs in college football because I think he's a really damn good college coach.
Yeah. I think that there's also that part of Matt Rule's chapter of not only that he went, year 1 to year 2 jumps at Temple and Baylor, and then you get to the year 3s, but also, and I heard Urban Meyer bring this up and Colin Cowherd as well, that there is also something to take in about failing at the NFL level, but not letting it define you. And so,
if anything, that's what drives him.
Absolutely.
Remember,
and there are certain guys that it will. And I think every conversation that a lot of these media personalities, especially national media personalities or former coaches now turned media personalities like Urban Meyer, have that conversation with Matt Rule, he wins a lot of people over. And that's what this offseason has been, is that I think there's belief that, hey, you've got pretty much an entire defense coming back from a top 15 defense.
Pretty damn good, yeah.
So there's that.
Year.
I think there's a lot of high regard for Tony White and the type of guy that he is. So that defensive side, there's a lot of respect there. There's a lot of intrigue and excitement over what Dylan Raiola could potentially be. But with all of that aside, a lot of this national narrative with Nebraska, who shows up on just about everybody's college football teams to watch, college football teams that could be a sleeper, college football teams that are looking to make a big jump in year 2 under their new head coach, that Nebraska shows up on a lot of those lists. And it's simply, in my opinion, those things that I mentioned before matter, but it's how Matt Rule sells his vision. It's how Matt Rule articulates that vision to where it doesn't seem like just lip service. Because I think the thing about Matt Rule, compared to other coaches that we've seen here in Nebraska when they're trying to right the ship, is it's not just a lot of pomp and circumstance, rah-rah, trying to pump the guys up. I think at times he's brutally honest with them. He's brutally honest with their history. He's brutally honest about a year ago of what kept them from being in a bowl game. And he gives you that blueprint, that inside look on how they're going about correcting it. Now, we all know, and even everybody who is jumping on this Nebraska bandwagon understands that, well, that's all well and good. If it doesn't happen, then you're back to where you were a year ago. But I think the ability to articulate that plan of attack in year 2, it seems so detailed and so well thought out that you feel like your players are on board with this. And if they can even do half of what you're saying, that's going to go from 5-7 to 7-5.
If you're consistent and you say the same thing, the message is always consistent. You start to believe it. And that's the whole idea. They're very consistent, very calculative. We've talked about this before, that not everything is not left to chance by Matt Rule. Yep. Everything is said and done with an intention and a purpose. Everything
much more
they
candid
do,
than a lot of coaches.
Everything. And the players believe that, they feel it, and they feed off that. But this is why I've said all the time, if they're healthy, because that's what we started the show talking about, is, okay, this is becoming a little bit of a concern. Health has not been, but this is a concern from him because he's probably thinking the same thing. Mm-hmm. If we're healthy, look out. We're going to take some big strides this year.
Yeah, it's a good place to be from the standpoint of, hey,
but because the work.
You want your guys to believe that this year will be better. But you also want them to believe it's going to be better because, yeah, like you said, the work, what you have put in. And Gary brought this up a while back, and I think that this is a very underrated part of what you're seeing with Nebraska football in just year 2. And that is the development of the bottom half of this roster. Okay, you can roll out 22 to 25 guys collectively and say, all right, these are the guys who are going to roll to get the most reps and impact the game the most. But in moments like this, when a Javen Wright goes down or when a Teddy Prohaska goes down, and you have that type of hole to fill or depth to fill that you feel in just a year and a half, that what your coaching staff has done, led by the tone of the head guy, where you feel like everybody's getting reps. I love what Matt Rule said last week about now having all of the analysts having on-field roles, because the NCAA now allows that to happen, that those third level, fourth level guys are also getting detailed coaching and are getting as much attention as the guys in the first and second, maybe not with the same coach, but are also understanding that if all hell breaks loose when it comes to the injury front, and we've seen that. I mean, hell, Texas is a great example of what's happening to the running back room. You just never know what kind of hand you're going to be dealt there, that all you can do, every coach always says that next man up mentality, but we all know that next man up mentality may be a very, very scary proposition, that all you can do is at least get the guys that are behind them in the best position to know their role, know their job, and physically develop. So this goes to Corey Campbell as well, and physically developing these guys. It's just a very detailed plan of developing that bottom half as much as you're developing the top half.
And this is why when a coach gets hired, I've had many people tell me over the years, especially when I worked in that world, it is about the strength coach. That is the most important hire. And then they put the staff together because they're going to spend most of their time with the strength coach in the off season, in all the programs that's put together. It's Corey Campbell that is the star of the show for these guys to get better. And then once you get in towards the season, the other coaches with the stuff that they do. But these guys are built the way you talked about. Javen Wright, there's an example, ready to go, body's ready to go. And then it's unfortunate the things that happen, but it isn't because he didn't do the things to prepare to have himself ready, and will continue to have himself prepared for when he gets back and that he's in the right deal. So yeah, that's why they say next man up mentality, because you prepared those next men.
Yep.
It's one thing if they're not prepared, or if you just don't have the dudes, because you can train that donkey all you want. Doesn't mean he's going to win the Kentucky Derby. However, once you have dudes and you are preparing them, the idea is, well, they say next man up because we prepared those next men to step up, and we're going to teach and we're going to build depth. Part of it, that's a development program.
He sells the plan better than anybody I've seen.
I believe him.
He absolutely does. And he has people believing. Here, I get it.
Not a homer. I just believe him. I really do.
We're cautiously optimistic, but a lot of the right buttons continue to be pushed. We're going to continue the conversation. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald to get his takes on some of the Nebraska football headlines over the weekend, right after this here on 1620 The Zone. The song always reminds me of the opening scene of Step Brothers when he's melting the cheese on the nachos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then, what's the dude's name? Curly hair guy. Brandon C. Riley?
John C. Riley.
John C.
Riley,
God,
yeah.
Brendan Riley. Jeez. Nebraska player. John C. Riley is playing a Guitar Hero. Yeah. A guy who maybe is playing Guitar Hero. I don't know. I don't know what Evan. Maybe Evan's a gamer. Maybe he's not. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald joining us here on the 42 Degree Hotline. Good Monday morning, Evan. How are you?
Morning, guys. Yeah, there's always lots of room for activities.
Yes.
It depends, how much time there is, but the space is always there.
My man. I knew you'd pick up on that one. Evan, we led the show off with probably the most, not even probably, the most unfortunate story to come out of this weekend for Nebraska football, and that is Javen Wright out indefinitely with a medical condition. I mean, first, your thoughts obviously go to the trajectory that he was on and the type of season that he was definitely going to have, or at least had the ability to have, but also the uncertainty of where this leaves him in his future as a college football player who, by all accounts, looked like he had a chance to play on Sundays.
Yeah, you don't like to see the whole no timetable for return thing. That's never great, and it does. I mean, it sucks for Javen and what he's worked through. He was a guy who spoke a few weeks ago and just really opened up and detailed a lot of the physical stuff that he's been through in his time at Nebraska. Multiple blood clots, bone spurs, ligament tears, MCL. I mean, he's kind of been through it all. And, if you know him at all, he remained upbeat through it. He remained determined that wouldn't be the end for him. Although circumstances like that, you would think would convince some people to maybe move on from football, but he was bound and determined through it all. And it really looked like he had come out on the other side now as this surefire starter as a middle linebacker for Nebraska. And maybe that'll still come into play at some point this season, but now in the immediate future, he's going to miss some time, and it stinks for him. There's no doubt, but it turns your attention now to the rest of that group, which already was at least within the defense, that group that you kind of look at that said, okay, there are actually a few new faces here. Not the case as much in the secondary on the defensive line. So you're looking a little more at John Bullock, you're looking at increased reps for Mekhi Bayer, and then we've heard a lot about Stephon Thompson and, of course, Vincent Shavers, who's outside of Dylan Raiola, and maybe Ja'Cory Barney has been the fastest rising true freshman on the team. So they still feel like that's a position of strength for Nebraska. But obviously, again, you hate to have your senior who's not there, who's I think is on the short list to have a single-digit number just based on how he's been as a leader vocally and his actions on the field. So you hope for a speedy recovery for him. But Nebraska, I think, does feel like it has reinforcements behind him that it really won't miss too much of a beat in terms of on-the-field production.
Evan, they have reinforcements, but at the same time, as they're starting to have a fear growing that they could become one of those seasons where they're kind of injury bit.
I mean, it's the great equalizer, right? Like you can have all the positive momentum about, experience and talent retention and, all the rest. And if the injury bug hits, that's just the one thing you can't really control all that much. And again, it's not like it sounds like it's not like he just got hurt in practice, but he's dealing with some kind of a health condition there. And you add in what Teddy Prohaska did, tearing his knee, and we saw Roger Gradney, the true freshman. Not that he was necessarily going to play much this year, but we saw that in the open practice. And Henry Latusky early in camp missed a couple weeks, and he's just working his way back. And Bly Hill's just working his way back. So, it is something you kind of look at a little bit, and you're just like, golly, that's kind of the one thing that could maybe derail things, and it kind of reminds you a little bit of seasons past. Like I guess for me, it reminded me a little bit of 2018 when Adrian Martinez injured his knee early in the season in that Colorado game, and it just put a damper on things. So it kind of feels like for all the the good work that Matt Rule and his staff put in, for all the work that the players have put in the offseason, that's kind of the one area that you just hope things can stay relatively on beam, and they'll be okay. So I guess we'll see. But I think at this point, and for a lot of reasons, and injuries would be one of them, you just can't wait for the season and actual games to get here soon enough.
Evan Bland joining us from the Omaha World Herald. Evan, Matt Rule talking about the running backs I thought was interesting. He's mentioned still looking for that guy that is going to be that breakaway threat, going to be that big play guy. Hasn't seen it yet. Are you surprised that nobody has separated themselves, or going into fall, did it always just have the feeling that there were going to be three main guys in particular, maybe a fourth, but they would all sort of complement each other, but there wasn't ever really that big home run hitter amongst the group?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, it's not like it's a room of like four unknown commodities.
Right.
I mean, Ramir Johnson's been around the program for a long time, and we've seen flashes of what he can do. Gabe Ervin, injuries have kept him from putting together a full season, but I think we've seen enough to kind of know, generally speaking, what his game is more of a versatile kind of running back who can catch passes and run between the tackles. And we got our first look at Emmett Johnson last year, and I thought he showed out pretty well, but it didn't necessarily look like he was a guy who was, a home run threat on every carry. And Dante Dowdell had probably the best recruiting prospect pedigree of any of those guys. And really the thing that we've heard from coaches in the offseason about him was just this reminder that he's still young, he's still coming along.
Mm-hmm.
He might be one of the more explosive guys, but he's also a bigger body and learning the playbook and things like that. So it always has, yes, I think it's kind of struck me that this is a running back room where guys have different strengths, but there's not like a candidate that's shown that they can be that feature back, that guy who's going to dominate the carries and that sort of thing. So I think it's a room that if you use it well situationally, that can be effective. And I think, to me, the reason for optimism about the room isn't so much the players themselves, but it's the pieces around them getting better. It's the threat of a pass from your quarterback that then forces opposing defenses to play you straight. You're not going to stack the box and dare Nebraska to run as much. So I think that alone is going to help Nebraska's run production. I think the offensive line and its its veteran presence this year is going to help them run. But I think just the idea that, especially guys who've been around, who've been hurt, are suddenly going to break out is like, the second coming of Amir Abdullah seemed unlikely at best. And so, if anyone's going to do it, I think it might be Dante Dowdell, still as a young guy with that pedigree, like I mentioned. But I think it can be a group that's an asset to the team, but it might not just be one of those set it and forget it positions. I think you'll have to be a little bit more intentional about how you set these guys up schematically to be in position to succeed.
Evan, back in the day, it seems like it was always encouraged you have to have your bell cow running back, and running back by committee was a negative connotation. But it seems like what you're saying in a way is this year it could be kind of that running back by committee. And the way the game has changed, I don't think that's a bad thing. It just means you have more dudes that can do different things, and that's not bad.
Right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a baseball starting pitcher, right? Like 20 years ago, guys are going 7 or 8 innings, and you're not necessarily needing to go to the bullpen much. And that's changed. I think that's sort of the way that running backs have gone. Not to say that there aren't those dominant players still out there, but I think we've seen like you're going to need depth, especially now in a time when you're playing 9 Big Ten games and the league is as tough as it's ever been. You see guys get hurt all the time. I mean, Nebraska obviously experienced that firsthand last year with some of the injuries they absorbed, and so it's great to have that guy, but if he gets hurt, what does your number 2 or your number 3 guy put on the table for you? So I think much like Nebraska has prepared to go into this season, assuming, hey, it might need multiple quarterbacks because of injury. I think that's the same and probably even more true with running backs with the punishment that they take, where you just can't rely on one guy to to take 30 carries a game. It's just not realistic. So would you love to have that guy at the top? Yes, absolutely. But if you can't have it, hopefully you have the depth to where 3 or 4 different guys are trustworthy enough and can make enough plays to keep you competitive. And I think that's where Nebraska finds itself right now.
Evan, no definitive announcement of QB1. I think I liken this to the black shirt question. At the end of the day, does it really matter? You probably know who's going to occupy the majority of those jerseys, just like at the end of the day, we feel pretty good about who's going to be taking that first snap against UTEP, barring anything unforeseen. But I am intrigued to some extent of if there will be a definitive 2 or if there'll be an or, especially given what was said about Danny Kaelin this last weekend.
No, it's probably where the intrigue is right now. And, I'll be interested, first of all, to see how Nebraska makes that announcement. Like, you think back to when Adrian Martinez was named starter, I think Nebraska put out an email and it was like an official thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Rule just sort of mentions it in passing at some point this week. Dylan's been with the ones, he'll get to start, and then that'll be that, and you'll mention it, and he'll be asked to elaborate on it a little bit, but I think it'll be understated when that announcement comes at some point this week. But what he said about Daniel Kaelin was notable. I think he's praised Kaelin at every chance that he's gotten since he's been at Nebraska. But to say that he sees him as a future NFL player and he has it, right? Yep. That intangible it factor, that says a lot. So I still don't know if that means he's the number 2 guy this year. I think, it makes a ton of sense for him to redshirt, and assuming Dylan's the guy as the starter, and you didn't bring in Jalen Gramstad as a post-grad senior to sit and do nothing. So I would think he would be heavily in the mix, and you still have a returning starter in Heinrich Harburg who's going to be involved in some capacity too. So, I think when Matt Rule says stuff like that, it usually is very intentional. There's a reason behind it. And I think in a reason like that, he's talking to Kaelin as much as he's talking to the fans or to the media. I think he's telling Daniel Kaelin, hey, if Dylan's the guy, we still see a ton in you. We still believe in you. We still think you have a place in this program. And so what better way to get that message across than to put it out there publicly for everyone to hear? So I think it's a smart move by Matt Rule. I'm not saying he doesn't believe it. I'm sure he does, but putting it out there, that's one of the ways that you retain talent to the level that Nebraska has in the last offseason. So, Matt Rule picks his spots really carefully there. So I still don't think I would expect Kaelin to be even on the 2 line next year. But if he continues to get reps behind the scenes, maybe gets into a game or 2 and keeps that red shirt, Nebraska feels pretty good about what its room can be even beyond this season.
One quick question here as we wrap things up, and that is if you're looking at the growth of this team, we're just talking about some of the national praise that Nebraska seems to show up on a lot of people's list of sleeper teams or teams looking to make a big jump. I want you to put in order what you think the majority of these predictions are coming from. Is it Matt Rule's ability to articulate his vision for year 2? Is it the defense and the guys returning? Or is it number 15, Dylan Raiola?
I think it's putting them in order. I suppose I would say it would be Raiola, defense, and then I would go Rule, because I think, the defense probably will still be the reason Nebraska is the most competitive, but we saw what Nebraska was with a pretty darn good defense last year, and it still wasn't enough to have a winning season. So I think if that piece is consistent, even if the defensive piece stays the same as it was last year, flipping the quarterback play from just, what it was in terms of turnovers and the inability to generate anything through the air. Like, if that piece goes from what it was to even average in the FBS, you're probably talking a swing of 3 games, maybe something like that, before you even look at 4, before you look at any of the other potential improvements. And I think Rule, as impressive as he is, he's a pretty, I think the confidence there comes from his track record elsewhere, and he puts himself out there to the national media, and I think they, really appreciate what he's done too. So I still think that's a factor as well. But I think just the power of improved quarterback play with all the other pieces that they still have in place would be key. And the other piece I would throw in there too is the schedule. Just that ability to have this on ramp into the season where you're able to play at home, you're able to play some teams that you should beat early on, generate some confidence. So I would be curious if everything was the same, but Nebraska had last year's schedule, how optimistic people would be if they had to go to Minnesota and go to Colorado just to start the season. So I think that piece plays into it too. So it just kind of feels like a lot of things are lining up for a good start for Nebraska.
Evan, great stuff as always. Appreciate you jumping on. It's crazy to think this time next week we'll be talking about the game week presser. We'll have a depth chart that we get to process as well. I mean, yes, exactly. It's here, my man. Appreciate it. Enjoy the week.
We made it, guys. See ya.
Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald.
That's the main thing. We made it.
We did. We got through it somehow, some way. When we come back, I want to put this out there about Dylan. I think the conversation about what to truly expect has been handled with kid gloves. Do we have to do that? I'll explain that coming up here on 1620 The Zone. We're going to do our weekly wrap with Jacob Bigelow coming up here in about 5 minutes. I want to throw this out there. We can talk about this more. Maybe we can ask Jacob about it as well, Jimmy. But I get it when there's a true freshman that is going to play a significant role for really any team other than maybe college basketball during the one and done era, because there were, you had company.
Yeah, lots of them.
We think we know how he's built, how Dylan Ryle is built. We've seen, at least in various stages between spring and now fall, leading into the season opener against UTEP.
He's done the work to prepare for this.
You've watched the ability.
Won't be for the lack of effort or dedication.
But also just the skill set. At what point this season can we just quit handling this conversation with kid gloves and say, yeah, the expectation should be high for him because he's good? I feel like we talk about the potential. We talk about the if this or that or this works out, he could be above average, which would be good enough. And all that's true. Above average quarterback play for Nebraska is a major step forward from a year ago. That's all true.
Yeah, that's 2 steps above.
But why can't he be a phenom? Why can't we just say, yeah, I'm all in? The dude's...
Why can't he be Dylan football?
Right. Like at some point, can we just say, yeah, you know what? Go all in. Go all in. Sky's the limit. Because I think there's certain people that if that narrative builds, that they can't handle that they try to do too much, that they go beyond or try beyond their limits, and that leads to mistakes. And as we know, mistakes will happen. Hell, mistakes happen to, 3-year starters. That's just part of the gig.
I grew up. Well, I didn't grow up. I was already grown up, but I was watching Tony Romo make lots of mistakes, but I still liked him.
What about Troy Aikman?
He didn't make as many mistakes.
Yeah.
The 94 NFC Championship game, but we blame that on Barry Switzer. Anyway.
I even watched the great Walter Payton fumble the ball every now and then.
I saw Emmitt Smith fumble a ball in overtime against the Oilers in 1991, and they lost. It's the only fumble.
I understand why we do it. I'm just wondering at what point do we just say, screw it. I'm done handling this conversation with kid gloves. I'm all in on him. He's going to be amazing. I'm setting a high standard because my eyes are telling me I should.
I honestly would be like, Dom, what do you think? Can we go all in? You tell us. If he says it's okay, it's okay.
And I get why.
I would believe him.
I get why Matt Rule doesn't do that. Always brings up all the quarterbacks. I understand why Marcus Satterfield doesn't do that. I get it.
Right.
That's good. That's part of the bringing the guys along and everything. But as fans, I think we all want to go there. But
here's why they don't.
What this team what this team has done to us, and especially that position has done to us, you almost feel insane to just assume. But what if our first impression is the right one, and it's the right one as early as his true freshman year?
Well, see, now you make me nervous.
I'm just saying.
I'm not even who you're talking to here. I know the people you're talking to because they're good people.
Well,
they care. They that's why they listen to this stuff.
We have the same conversation about rookie quarterbacks in the NFL, where, I'm living that right now because you're based on past of, it's not even necessarily the history of that position as a true freshman quarterback or a rookie quarterback in the NFL. It's usually that reluctance is shaped on your team's history. And at some point, that history will change. May not be this year, may not be 10 years from now, but at some point it will. Is 15 the guy that will change that narrative? And it's okay as if, let's say he balls out against Colorado in a night game on a grand stage like that. Can we just say, yep, I'm done even being careful about this. I'm all in.
I can hear Parcells saying, hey, let's not put the kid in Canton just yet. But the point is, he said that to...
I just think from a freshman who's brought up the way that Dylan is, but also the things he has around him, which I think is extremely key to this conversation. Now, the left tackle situation is something to keep your eyes on for sure, because based on everything that's being talked about, Turner Corcoran's been just fine, but you're one man short at that position, and you've got a lot of inexperience behind him. But as far as wide receiver, major upgrade from a year ago. Running back, you've got options. You don't have the breakaway, but you got options.
Damn good tight ends.
Absolutely. And the offensive line, does have experience. I get it. Left tackle is something to circle, but you're in a much better position, in my opinion, to bring in a true freshman quarterback than you could be in other stops when it comes to maybe not having an established wide receiving core or guys that have experience, running backs, offensive line. And here's the other part too. And I this will be the second time I brought this up in a week. Glenn Thomas. He's the guy behind the scenes that I don't think many people are going to talk about. But if you see Dylan
Maybe that's a good thing.
elevate, there's going to be a lot of praise that needs to be given to Glenn Thomas, in my opinion. And I don't know how much there will be, but having a guy that can take you off to the side in the heat of the moment of the game, process things, help you process things, and get you on to the next series, as opposed to a guy that's got his fingers in everything with the offense from the tight end to the play calling and all these different things like Marcus Satterfield had, or a guy that, quite frankly, you may not understood what the hell he was talking about in Mario Verduzco. There's a lot of experience at both levels that comes with Glenn Thomas that I think also goes a long way. I just think there's a lot of things around Dylan Raiola right now to succeed. Not just, hey, play average football, play mid football, which would be an improvement.
Nebraska football 2024, fairly decent.
Yeah. Be above average. Yeah, that's fine. And that's an upgrade.
Day.
But why do we got to stop for there? Why do we have to be like, yeah, just be above average? Why can't he be great? Why can't he be great his freshman year? I don't know.
Not.
Just don't kick us in the nuts 2024. T-shirts on sale now.
Let's lay out the onside kick, which
kick to the other team.
We'll talk about an Aer Lingus tradition a little bit later on. All right, Jacob Bigelow joins us right after this here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley, Jimmy and Peter. 1620 The Zone. Final hour here on a Monday. Mornings with Sharp and Handley, Jimmy and Peter and Nick with you. We're going to be talking friend or foe segment, Ohio State. We have made it to that part of the schedule. We'll be talking to Patrick Murphy
This
of
segment
24/7's Bucknuts. We'll be talking in about 30 minutes from now. But our good buddy Jacob Bigelow joins us as he does every Monday at this time. Good weekend, Jacob?
Yes, no, I'm feeling pretty good this morning. Kept it pretty low key. I mean, I snuck out to Warner Park for some baseball on Saturday night, but other than that, nothing too crazy. But I'm feeling pretty good this morning. How about you guys?
Remember those days of sneaking out?
You know what? Above average. I'm feeling above average.
I'm fairly decent, Jacob. I could go for about 20 and 11, but
Okay. No, I mean that's a good spot. That's a good place to be. I feel like we're all locked in. We're all locked in. This should be a good chunk here.
we've
Should be good.
scripted our first 30 plays.
What's a Monday morning for Jacob Bigelow, by the way? Before you join this fine radio program? Are you an early riser?
Decently,
Okay.
not like.
Remember the beginning of
super
Lethal
early,
Weapon when Mel Gibson gets up in his trailer and just walks around and gets that's
Yeah,
how
has
I
a
picture
heater.
Jacob.
Yeah, has a heater and maybe watch some cartoons or something.
Yeah, no lung darts in the morning, but I mean, depending on maybe a cartoon with some coffee. I mean,
Ice
I don't
cold
really
Meisterbrow.
I don't really have much of a routine. I'm just kind of a get up and go guy. I'm not a slow starter, but I'm just kind of get up and go. So
Take life by the cojones. I like that. Jacob, if I were to try to convince you to just let's all take the kid gloves off when it comes to managing Dylan Raiola's expectations as a true freshman, could I eventually sell you on, you know what? I'm going to pretend he's a sophomore or a junior. I'm going to give him high expectations because I feel extremely confident, disregarding any type of past pain that this team or that position has caused me, that I'm convinced he's different and I'm going to go all in. Can you do that?
that's an excellent question, Nick.
Thank you.
I tuned in a little bit to the end of the previous segment, so I heard you guys discussing it a little bit. But I mean, that's kind of, I mean, it's that's kind of one of my big things looking at this football season too, because I do agree with you. I mean, there are some people I talk to who are all in on number 15, and then there are people who are handling it with kid gloves. He's still a true freshman. He's 18 years old, and he hasn't played, and he's not playing games at Buford High anymore. He's playing in the Big Ten. Things like that. But I mean, you could definitely sell me on it. I mean, if your trepidation is based on past performance and the laundry list of quarterbacks that we've seen around here for the last couple decades. I mean, this guy isn't those guys. Everything we've been told, everything we've seen on film, everything on even if you believe in recruiting rankings, he's head and shoulders above the majority of the guys we've seen around here, and that's a pretty good start. But and then in comparison to last year's quarterback play, I mean the bar for quarterback play isn't on the floor. I'd say it's about 6 feet underground, compared to for this season compared to last year. So I mean, once he shows the ability to catch the snap, we'll already be ahead of where we were in week 1 of last year when it comes to evaluating quarterback play.
Big shoes to fill right
now.
there.
He's made me nervous. What if he drops a snap?
Those are huge shoes to fill.
What if he lines up under the guard?
So essentially you're saying if he's upright from the ground, then
he has a pulse.
Then he's already exceeded that bar.
Things are trending nicely.
Yeah, I mean, the things will be trending nicely if in the second game, the play-by-play man isn't like begging the coach to bench him. That is another thing that we saw last year. Like,
I thought you're like, wait, why would you say that about Greg? But no, you're talking about our man.
I'm talking about old
Gus.
Jeff Sims, get this guy out of here.
Why? Joel, explain to me why this guy is still out there.
Yeah.
Jalopy Jeff.
Those will be two huge steps in the right direction. Catching snaps and not having the television crew openly saying, why is this man playing? Those will be two big steps forward.
Okay. No, that's fair.
Nissan Sentra Sims.
What do we have for Dylan? God, I'm trying to think of a cool car that starts with a D.
D?
Yeah.
They still make the
For
Dodge
those-
Durango?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems nice.
He needs to be better than the Dodge Durango.
Yeah, that's true.
In my
Which
opinion.
is a solid vehicle, by
Yeah,
the
it
way.
is.
There's
It
nothing
is.
wrong. Shout out people who drive a Dodge Durango.
I'm going all in with this, Jacob. If you haven't been able to detect my tone today, I'm tired of just being cautious on this whole thing just because of what past has done.
Riola.
There. Rolls Royce Riola. Yeah,
sound like
could happen.
It's going to happen.
I want to get nuts with this thing. Let's just start setting the highest expectation possible because I think he can handle it.
Yeah, I mean, he's. The more we hear, the more it feels like that's kind of just been how he's been most of his life, with the expectations and being around. I mean, whether it's when you're hearing from guys like Matthew Stafford or people who just or even Mahomes calling him his little cousin. I mean, it feels like there's been people have taken notice of Dylan for quite some time, and it's nothing new for him. I know we hear people talk about the fish bowl that is Nebraska football and the pressure that comes along with it. But I mean, I feel like the more we hear about Dylan Raiola, the more that pressure isn't really a thing to him. It's kind of just been something he's dealt with for most of his life.
Pink Floyd once sang about a fish bowl. They were right. Is this a sign, Jacob? The season just needs to get here. I mean, at this point, you're just overanalyzing, and as long as everyone stays healthy, which that's been the big topic today, and rightfully so, but it gets to a point where, can we just get to August 30th already so we can talk about the game, but also so we can see the kid play?
Oh, I mean, the season's needed to be here for about a month.
6 months.
People have been getting mad online about tweets about coaches wearing the color yellow for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I mean,
I saw
it's,
that.
people are. This state needs a football game pretty bad.
They hate Coldplay.
It's been that way for a while. They need a Nebraska football game like tomorrow. I mean, if they were kicking off on a Tuesday night, I think this state would be all for it. We've been there for a little bit.
Petiti's like, Tuesday night Big Ten football.
Don't do it. That's the MAC.
That's MACtion.
You got to leave things for the MAC. All right, that's no good.
We love MACtion here.
Jacob, I did want to, because the amount of way too early bracketologies that I see, and they continue to praise Duke at a high regard and talk about Cooper Flagg. I want to. There's always a player that comes into the fold that is must-watch college basketball. Is that where Cooper Flagg is for you this year, or are you just kind of like he's another dude? He's another dude at Duke.
Looks like a Duke.
No, he's definitely there for me.
Okay.
The label that I've given is push notification guys. Like
guys
guys who you're going to be getting an ESPN notification from. I mean, last year it was Caitlin Clark, but I mean, think about Zion, Trae Young.
Most years with them, it's LeBron James.
Yeah, but Buddy Hield, and guys who, if they go off, you're getting an ESPN notification. I think Cooper Flagg is definitely. I mean, he's a push notification guy, and then I think we already got a taste of what he's got in his bag. In the USA basketball select team action that he was in training camp. Holding his own with grown men. I mean, people. The thing that's the craziest about Cooper Flagg is this should be his senior year of high school. He reclassed a year up, so he should be going into his senior year of high school, and he was holding his own at USA basketball camp, and he's a consensus number one pick. So I will definitely be watching him whenever I get the chance to.
So he's missing a senior year of high school. How about that? All the things you miss when you do no senior skip day, no senior pranks. Sorry, that was fun.
It was fun, but we always had tattlers.
Just to go to Duke. Well, there's always. I mean, that
tattlers.
never changes, even when you grow up and you work somewhere. That's why they're called narcs.
Hey, real quickly too about way too early bracketology. So this one was late last week. Joe Lunardi has Nebraska as a first four out, but there's a bubble conversation about Nebraska.
Still time to play their way back in.
Oh, I'm sure they'll probably be first 4 or last 4 in by the time the season starts. Maybe they'll be next 4 out, which, by the way, has Iowa next 4 out. But let me ask you this question, Jacob. If Nebraska were to be in the, let's say, last 4 buys or in, as opposed to the first 4 out or next 4 out, what will have gone right and or wrong as far as most important parts of the Nebraska basketball roster that could impact that one way or the other?
I think if they're going to be on the right side of the bubble, that means that one or both of Gavin Griffiths and Connor Essegian are hitting threes at a pretty good clip. They are definitely two. They're I don't want to say they're the linchpins for what the ceiling of this team could be, but I think you're betting on bounce backs from both of them, right? I mean, Essegian, we've seen what he's capable of his freshman season, and then he hurts his back early in the year last year, can't really bounce back from it, gets lost in the shuffle in Madison. Griffith, his high school tape, he's a flamethrower. I mean, he's shooting from just about anywhere, but then he ends up at Rutgers, where offense isn't really the name of the game for Steve Peichel. So you're betting on the Fred Hoiberg system and a summer at Nebraska to maybe have a little shot doctor effect on you and have a little bounce back. And I think if those two are hitting threes at a average to above average clip, that play a part in Nebraska being on the right side of bubble conversation.
I don't disagree with you on that one, because I love me some Connor Essegian, especially if he is doing what you're doing. I think one of the most pure shots you're going to see on that roster. I want to see your thought, though. With all that being said, where does big man play in the paint, both defensively and offensively, given the system and all of that you factor in? Where does the additional big men, the Mias, and every addition that they've had, where does that factor in on that type of success or lack thereof?
It's in the conversation for sure. I'm still trying to. It is only August, but I have begun to draft up position previews for basketball season. Okay. I'm starting to write, work on some position previews, and I'm trying to think about what would be considered a good season for Braxton Mia at Nebraska. I will say this, I think not enough people are talking about Andrew Morgan. I think I think the staff is really high on him. He was the first transfer portal commit. But he may not be getting a lot of buzz because he's not 7 feet tall like Braxton Mia is. Yeah. I don't think Nebraska. Yeah, I don't think Nebraska's had anyone built like Braxton Mia. Maybe ever. It could go back quite a ways, but his height, his athleticism. But they have legitimate post depth. With Mia, Morgan, Berke. Once he should be getting on campus here soon. And they've got legitimate guys who at the 4 and the 5, they got a lot of depth there. So I think that definitely will play a part as well.
Mr. Bigelow, always appreciate you coming on, my man. What's on the agenda today? What do you got going on?
Not a whole lot. It's pretty laid back.
Little swimming pool, little Mai Tai.
Looking forward to game 2 of fall softball tomorrow.
That's right.
Kind of looking. I got to get some stuff booked for Big Ten basketball media day, and slowly easing my way toward basketball. And that does not mean I'm not glad to have football back in my life. My quarterback threw a behind the back pass this weekend, so that was cool to see. But
there's a play that you run in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Practice something you actually do. Let's do half court shots because we never know when we're going to need that in the game.
Hey, that's how a lot of teams end practice. But no, pretty laid back week for me. But I appreciate the time, like always, guys.
Jacob, do you listen to the Rocky IV soundtrack when driving to these softball fairs?
I haven't yet. I might start.
Pop in some training montage.
I don't want to mess with the voodoo. I started off well last week.
You could listen to voodoo then.
Singles, but I might. Maybe that'll up the good voodoo.
Hey, by the way, before we say goodbye for real, Bellevue West Joey, we can pin this for next Monday. He wants you to give your way too early starting 5.
Yeah. You got a week to think about.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, buddy.
I can do that. All right. Thanks, guys.
See you, Jacob.
Back to the lab for he can have that ready to go.
See, we try to appease our listeners too. It'd be a good question. Good, way too early. I love these way too early things. But yes, the way too early bracketology has Nebraska missing out. So they would be maybe one of the teams that Dick Vitale would lose his crap over that they didn't get in.
And then Jay Billis would calmly put him back in his place because he has a law degree.
Seth Greenberg has also got on that lately too. Seth Greenberg's a big advocate for the bubble team who doesn't get in because I know he's experienced that himself. But again, if you're on the bubble, it's your own fault.
Yeah. Exactly. I wouldn't know.
You know what I would say just initially for Nebraska? If they're a bubble team and they don't make it in, why'd you look at your home schedule?
Yeah.
Not really good.
Yeah. Get a schedule the Celtics.
Hey, speaking of schedules, by the way, On3 put this out last night, predicting the top 10 most watched games of the college football season. Do you guys think Nebraska will be involved in any of those?
I'm hoping at least 3 or 4 MACtion games will make the list.
Well, they already have, so they got their top 10, and this is throughout the country. Does any of Nebraska's games that you guys can think of right now make the top 10, according to On3? Now, you got to think like On3 here.
I'd still go to Colorado.
I would say maybe the Iowa game.
Yeah.
National slot.
Jimmy's right. You're wrong.
I was wrong.
They got Colorado, Nebraska at number 10.
I'm just a fan. I want to watch that game.
Prime time and everything too. Yeah.
The environment.
I did
Lincoln
just see
on a Saturday night. It'd be great.
You know what number one is?
Colt McCoy is going to make make his broadcasting debut in that game.
Yep.
So you know what the film now is going to have.
He's going to be talking a lot about who's 93 on the roster.
Where is he? Is he still coming in? He should actually come in the booth and do a picture like
They should. You know what? I bet you Ndamukong Suh is at that game.
That'd be so
I would assume he would be. There needs to be a picture of Ndamukong Suh and Colt McCoy talking, maybe shaking hands, maybe a big bear hug.
Oh, that'd be funny.
What you should do that day?
Well, because we already know that they got to have the Warren Sapp
idea for the
thing.
video. You have Warren Sapp now.
You have to.
Now you're going to have Suh with the interception for the touchdown. No, wait. And the third thing now, just to make Colt feel at home, every damn time he threw him around like a rag doll. Mm-hmm. Just get everyone saying Suh.
Well, what's unfortunate for Colt McCoy is that's always like a big part of any type of promotion or hype video of the defense. You've got to show some of the nastiest moments. And unfortunately for Colt McCoy, it does involve that because that was one of the most dominant moments.
Yeah, it's like Naked Gun when the guy goes for the home run and tries to catch it and his head falls off.
Head and arms come off.
Or the guy who gets run over on the field. Hate it when that happens. Kids don't understand. Ballparks used to be really rough back then. You used to have Oldsmobiles on the field running over players as they're trying to turn double plays.
Texas, by the way, is involved in 3 of the top 10 games, according to On3. Michigan, Ohio State's number 1, Georgia, Bama 2, Texas, Michigan 3, Ohio State, Oregon 4, Notre Dame, A&M 5, Texas, OU 6, Texas versus Texas A&M 7.
Yeah, that's the game I want to watch.
SC, LSU 8, Miami and Florida 9, and Colorado, Nebraska.
Damn,
we're back.
So Buffalo and Eastern Michigan did not make it.
Baby. 2 teams that combined for 9 wins. A Saturday night in Lincoln,
and I
baby.
did see McMurphy dropped his first bowl projections. Both Kansas and Nebraska New Year's Eve games. Kansas against OU in the Texas Bowl and Nebraska against Texas in the Citrus
Bowl. Versus Texas?
Mm-hmm.
So he says I'm going to Houston.
Where's Texas? Not in the college football playoff?
Well, first of all, they're going to be in the Alamo Bowl. So they're going to go to Houston Bowl.
Jeez. Brett.
They call
No. I'm not. I'm saying that's my prediction.
Oh, okay.
That Nebraska will be in the Alamo Bowl or Texas?
No, Kansas.
Oh, Kansas. Okay.
Nebraska, Citrus Bowl would be good. For some reason, what if it's the Duke's Mayo Bowl? That's a Big Ten game. Your season ends with Matt Rule getting dumped with mayonnaise because they win.
I would throw up if I got mayonnaise dumped on me.
You don't have to eat it.
That'd be so gross.
They say it's kind of a spiciness though, so I'm intrigued.
Are you worried that you would inadvertently consume it?
And I'm not opposed to mayonnaise. Like I'll throw it on a sandwich every now and then in moderation. But yeah, if I got a bunch of mayonnaise dumped on me and fell into my mouth or something, I might gag.
Ooh, this is a good question by
Jenna Jameson felt like
by Jeff on the stream because we're going to be talking Ohio State here in like 5 minutes. Jeff says if Nebraska is 7-0 going into the Ohio State game, that will make the top 10 as the most watched.
That's fair. Yeah.
Because we don't have
Ooh,
a time and
it would
network
be
for
a
that
dark
yet, do
horse.
we?
I like what Rick said about Sue and Colt McCoy here. He did, Rick. He did make him that.
And I'd get very nervous that if that was the case, it'd be a night game in Columbus. And I've seen too many of those night games in Columbus where it has gone very, 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 very bad.
Then you numb yourself, and then you don't feel anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? Nebraska's actually fared a lot better in the daylight against. Well, I
have.
take that back in Lincoln, though. The comeback.
Oh, yeah. That was good.
Rex's just dominance. Actually, it started with Levante David.
Hey, they have
Braxton
success
Miller.
against Ohio State in day games that are played north of the Mason-Dixon line against teams who do not play their home games in the dome.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Here's
All right,
the 1-1.
Patrick Murphy of Bucknuts 24/7 Sports. We're going to talk Ohio State in our friend or foe segment. That's where we are in the schedule. We are at that potential crossroads for the Nebraska season. What will Nebraska be when they take on the Buckeyes? We're going to find out about what the Buckeyes will have to bring, including naming a starting quarterback. All that and more next.
Well, hey, kids, taste this. Join the VIP club and sign up for 1620 the email. It's the gift that keeps on giving all year long, much like the Jelly of the Month Club. You'll be the first to know all the exciting content that's happening on 1620 The Zone, including sports news on account of us being a sports radio station, contest, promotions, and more. Sign up today at 1620thezone.com. In fact, pull over right now. Sign up.
Friend or fourth segment continues here. Nebraska will be taking on Ohio State. And the big question that someone posed on us, if Nebraska would be 7-0 at that time, my God, I can't even let my mind go there. Would that be one of the most watched college football games, Nebraska at Ohio State on the 26th of October? Well, you got to, what do they say? You always got to crawl before you can walk.
Win the game.
Get to 1-0 first, and then let's go from there. Going to talk Ohio State football now, though, with Patrick Murphy of Ohio State 24/7 Sports, Bucknuts.com. Patrick, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Just hearing you say that, I pulled up Ohio State's schedule just to make sure I had this right. The game they play before Nebraska, they do have the off week, is out at Oregon. So will Ohio State be 7-0 is a question.
Yes,
6-0, I guess, was a question.
That is another good question, yes.
They look past the Ducks.
The fact that Ohio State has a bye week, though, before Nebraska, I don't love that for Nebraska, but hey, you know what? That's okay. I know that the big news, and I don't even know if this was big news last week, Patrick, but you do get the announcement that Will Howard is the starting quarterback. But more importantly, that is an interesting quarterback room, very talented quarterback room as well. We've been talking a lot about Nebraska's quarterback room and as it's going to go to a true freshman, but there is obviously a very talented true freshman in Aaron Nolan. But I'm just curious, besides who QB1 is right now, what that room, just overall development in the short time that Chip Kelly has been the OC, how has that looked to this point?
It's been an interesting kind of last 7 months or so when you're talking quarterbacks. Kyle McCord jumps the transfer portal after the regular season, and then it was kind of up in the air where Ohio State would go. And after the season, after the Cotton Bowl loss, they turned to the transfer portal, bring in Will Howard, as you alluded to, who ends up winning the job. But first Ohio State hires Bill O'Brien to be the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. He lasted about 3 weeks before going to Boston College. So Chip Kelly didn't even get here until February after leaving UCLA. And he had spring to work with the guys, but it was a lot of getting to know players. And, they didn't do a ton of install, largely because I think he just didn't have a ton of time. Now, I will say that he and Ryan Day go way back to Ryan Day playing for him at New Hampshire, and they've worked together. So the familiarity between the two offensively is there. While Chip is quarterback coach in title and certainly works with the quarterbacks, no doubt about that, I think the biggest impact he'll have is helping this run game kind of get back on track after a few disappointing years. But the quarterback room is no doubt talented. I think Will Howard was always expected to be the guy, just given his experience at Kansas State. But Devin Brown, who has had few opportunities, keeps getting injured when he does get the chance to get in games, certainly played a part. You mentioned Aaron Nolan. Julian Sayin, who transferred from Alabama after only a few weeks there because of Nick Saban's retirement, is also in the room and has looked really good at times. So this was no doubt a quarterback competition, but I think Buckeye fans are glad to get official news last week.
Patrick, at the end of the day at Ohio State, we all know it's about the team up north. That's what it always talks about, the big game. Is there a little bit of a sadness among Buckeye fan that Jim Harbaugh left? Because they would have loved to have gotten a crack at beating them one more time, just to get that little payback, and then he could be on his way. Or they do not care. They're just saying, bring on Sherrone Moore. We just need to win that game.
Well, I think it is first, just win the game. Like, that's the Buckeyes, after losing 3 in a row, fans want to just get that victory, however it comes, and kind of get that monkey off their back. It reminds me of kind of back in the early 2000s and the 90s when they just couldn't find the wins against Ohio State with John Cooper. But I will say, I think if you were able to say, talk to Buckeye fans and ask, would you prefer it to be a Jim Harbaugh-led team that you would beat at the end of this season? They would say absolutely yes, especially with kind of how Jim Harbaugh has handled things with the NCAA and whatnot. I think Buckeye fans would like one more crack at him for sure. But like I said, they'll take it however they get it come the end of the year.
Patrick, this is the conversation that we have with Ohio State because you almost have to really, really look to find things that could be maybe problematic with Ohio State. And this is why I ask you this question. When I think of this defensive line with Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams, which are just outstanding, then you look at Jack Sawyer, you look at JT Tumolo, all those guys are studs, all potential. I mean, they could have a clean sweep of Big Ten all-conference when this is all said and done at the end of the year. What is the depth like? I feel like this is where we have a depth question that maybe leads you to some question marks after you get through what is just an impressive array of talent that this defense has.
It's funny you mentioned that. I had conversations on a podcast recently about you're almost too close to it when you cover it, or if you're a fan who pays attention like some of these Buckeye fans do, and you start to nitpick at a team that obviously is very talented. So it's funny you brought that up. But yeah, I think defensively, the starting talent is certainly there. I think if you look beyond the starters at safety, that's one position. I think where the depth could be problematic, especially in what the Buckeyes hope will be a 16 or so game season. Cornerback, they should be good. Linebacker, probably a couple other questions. There's talent there, but not a ton of experience. You mentioned the starters on the defensive line, but they believe they've got depth at those positions as well. The plan is to do some rotation there. They've been able to do that during spring and fall camp because there's veterans back that don't need all the reps. So safety and maybe linebacker, where I would point to the depth potentially having some issues, but there are names in those spots. It's just a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of college football yet, and you just don't know until those guys get out there, right?
If there is a offensively, and again, to kind of go back to the discussion between quarterback, a bevy of options at running back, including having Judkins transferring in, but we're also again looking at one of the most talented wide receiving cores with, now here's another true freshman to throw into the mix as well. If you're to look at, if this offense was to not fulfill its potential, why would that be the case in your opinion?
Yeah, I would start up front with the offensive line for me. And I think most people would agree with that. Going back to even this time a year ago, there have been questions about this offensive line. Now, they do return 3 starters, depending on how they end up lining up. They added Seth McLaughlin, the center from Alabama, who did have some snapping issues, if you remember, in the college football playoff and set points throughout last season. But they seem to think that he can get through that in a new environment. But they're, they still need a right guard. The center spot hasn't been solidified completely. I do think that will be McLaughlin, but it's just not the Paris Johnsons of the world that Ohio State fans are kind of used to at those spots. Now, I will say, a guy like Josh Simmons, who played left tackle after transferring from San Diego State, certainly got better throughout last season. Donovan Jackson, who will play left guard, he's probably one of the best in the Big Ten at that spot. But it's just not, you're not 100% confident on that like you are maybe some of the other spots on the offense. And so I think that would be, if they can't protect the way that they want, then that could cause issues even with the talent at all those other positions like you mentioned.
Patrick, I mean, the questions are always different these days when it comes to Ohio State. So I'll ask you this and you can answer it for me. A season that ends without a national championship is a...
Yeah, I'd say it would be a disappointment. As crazy as that sounds, especially going into a larger playoff field. I think, honestly, if you were able to get to the semifinal, I think that is at least, you've proven the bar. You've reached maybe the bar. If you lose a tight game to a Georgia, or if that's the way the matchups work out or whatnot, I think maybe that would be okay. But I mean, these guys all came back for a reason. They've got, I think it's 13 guys who started games last year that were juniors a year ago are now back. And look, they've said it. It's beat Michigan. It's win a Big Ten title. And it's win a national championship, and not necessarily in that order. So if they don't walk away with a victory to end the season, and obviously that would be in the playoffs, then I do think people will be a little disappointed given the talent on this roster.
There's some coaches, Patrick, that people would put in a category of great recruiter, great on team presence, but inability to win the game that matters or the big game. And, Dan Lanning, with all the great things that he does at Oregon, maybe is in that category. There's a couple of other coaches that you might put in there. The Ryan Day part of this conversation is interesting because you mentioned something with, losing a close one to Georgia, like what happened to him a couple of years ago. But other than the Michigan game, which is the game for Ohio State, I get that. The record for Ryan Day is damn impressive. So when it comes to the feeling around Columbus about the guy they have in charge, what is that conversation? What is that narrative?
Well, I think this year will determine that and, kind of how he's able to lead this team and given all of the things we've talked about. Look, he started off really impressive taking over for Urban Meyer and, the Buckeyes were in the playoffs and they made a national championship game in 2020 and, lost to a really good Alabama team and had to deal with some COVID issues in that game and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
If he wins that game, maybe the narrative is different, right? Or if they're able to beat Georgia and make that field goal at the end. But that's not the reality. And now you've lost 3 straight to Michigan. So he has to certainly produce this year. I'm not saying he will be on the hot seat if the Buckeyes don't win the national title this year, but I do think the perception will continue to be, even if he does beat a Michigan team that's not very good at the end of the season, okay, can Ryan Day win the absolute big one, which I think is a little unfair because he has won some big games. But that's just the way that the sport works, right?
Always some good stuff right there with 24/7 Sports, bucknuts.com. Just a absolute great cast for everything you need to know about Ohio State football. Patrick Murphy joining us. Patrick, really appreciate you taking time this morning to talk with us. Wishing you the very best throughout the season, and maybe we'll catch up here as we get close to that October 26th matchup.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Patrick Murphy, good stuff there from Patrick at bucknuts.com, CBS Sports, 247sports.com.
Friends of Husker.
Friends,
24/7.
Yes.
Part of the family.
They do. Bucknuts, they do awesome stuff. And again, let's just be honest. It's always fun to just say bucknuts.com.
I really wanted to ask him, so does the Bucknuts guy work for you guys? And if not, why not? Because he's everywhere. He loves the Buckeyes.
He is. That's true.
I guarantee
he should have a gig.
I guarantee you we could get the Bucknuts guy on and he would have a detailed and thorough breakdown of Ohio State.
Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he just yells. Maybe he's just a presence. Maybe he just
calm,
he looks the part.
Breaks down ball.
Well, guys,
you know what?
Actually,
that's my goal here.
Maybe he has a British accent.
I'm going to try and get as a matter of fact, boys. They're
been a lifelong Bucknuts
fan. Quite good.
Actually, really get into Premier.
Yeah.
Premier. What do they call it? Premier?
Premier. You said
Premier.
It. Yeah, you said it well. Yeah.
Premier. Speaking of that rivalry.
It's a great lad.
Excellent stuff to hear that Connor Stalions landed on his feet.
Congratulations. He starts his show on The Zone coming up in September.
Wouldn't that be something?
It'd be like,
they gave Zach Smith a not 16 with his own, but Zach Smith got a podcast after he was shunned out of Ohio State. That's why I should ask Patrick. Do people still claim Zach Smith?
They let me co-host with you today. I mean, obviously they can put Connor Stalions on the air.
Nah, you better. But he is, could you be a defensive coordinator in a Detroit area high school?
You should see how we shut dudes down on the video game. You're not going to run the ball on me.
Well, that's where Connor Stalions is now. He is with a first-year head coach in a Detroit high school where he will be the DC at Mumford High.
Mumford and Sons.
So I was thinking about this,
Sons.
which the new head coach, William McMichael, saying the right things of all the things that happened in Michigan didn't happen at Mumford High. And so this is going to be, a clean slate, if you will. And he was introduced through a mutual friend and, he really likes, apparently the kids love him because I'm sure he's got stories, man. Think about all the stories.
Champion.
Yeah, think about that. And he's got
the Wolverines win.
You know what? And when you know that a guy is going to the lengths of being able to disguise himself on an opposing team's sideline, hell, kids are going to want to know stories. They're going to think that's cool.
He's a modern Bobby Valentine.
So I want to know, I don't know how competitive this high sports classification is in Detroit. I'm sure there's some very good Detroit high school football. We know that.
Tomorrow. We'll find out.
Could people maybe pull a Connor Stalions against Connor Stalions' Mumford High School team? We'll actually get some sign stealing,
they dress up like him in the
second coming
the
to B Rabbit
reverse.
There,
Wouldn't that be great?
When does that documentary about him come out?
I believe it's
Soon.
the end of. Is it this? It might be
It's
this week.
month. There are a couple of them.
I think it's this week.
Hopefully,
Which, by the way,
better than the Swamp King.
Based on the trailer, Connor Stallions looks like he's got something to get off his chest. Looks like he remember how he was being the good foot soldier, and nobody, Jim Harbaugh included, nobody knew about this. I don't know if this is the trailer doing us wrong, because I remember Swamp Kings and the Johnny Manziel one. The trailers looked like, oh, this is going to be really, really good, and it turned out to be both of them turned out to be duds. Yeah. I'm assuming the Connor Stallions one will also be that way, but I'll tell you what, they're giving you some good tease to make you think that this could be a tell-all from Connor Stallions.
Too bad Don LaFontaine is dead, rest in peace, because he would have been perfect to have voiced this.
Well, don't you think Connor Stallions got some hush money too? And if he goes against that, then the little hush money that maybe he's getting goes away, and then all of a sudden he's on his own.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, he is a volunteer assistant or volunteer coach. He's not getting paid at Mumford High School. He's doing this
for money.
I'm telling you what he does for money.
Talk about timely.
OnlyFans?
He got paid to just say nothing. And Netflix.
No, Netflix is true.
Yeah, but talk about timely. It's coming out tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Hey, all right.
So,
and this high school,
for some reason,
Connor Stallions week.
Yes. I will watch, and unfortunately, that this is where I'm a pessimist. I will probably come back on Wednesday and say, God, that was a waste of my time. Because the Swamp Kings, I thought was going to be amazing.
It was not great.
It was
wasted potential.
It was an Urban Meyer PR. Like, in case you want to hire Urban Meyer as a coach, let us roll the film. There you go. He's a good coach.
And Nebraska, no, trust me, we did that already. We got Rule. We're good.
There was so much that
this is why I didn't watch
to know.
Once you guys told me that it was a disappointment, I'm like, I don't need that.
It was an Urban Meyer hype coaching.
It was.
Document.
I'm like, life disappoints me enough on a daily basis. I don't need Urban Meyer to help me. I don't need Netflix to help me.
Well, and then the Johnny Manziel one was essentially the Sopranos ending.
Yeah.
They were starting to get somewhere, and then all of a sudden,
that's it?
Big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
What happened?
So,
as much as I like this song,
the Connor Stallions thing is a great story. It's gonna fall flat.
Connor, don't call me Wild Stallion.
Prove me wrong. Netflix, prove me wrong. All right, we're gonna come back, wrap up the show here on 1620 The Zone.
Yes. 1620 The Zone and Liberty First Credit Union, brother, presents Ralston Day, sponsored by Liberty First Credit Union and all our stations, August 30th through September 2nd at the Liberty First Credit Union parking lot. Free admission. Free. You can't beat free. You know why? Because it's free. Carnival rides, music, food trucks. I'm assuming there'll be food trucks selling food and they're not giving away food trucks. But anyway, go. August 30th, September 2nd. Go there every day. Watch the Huskers if you're not going to the game. All the things that you want to do at Ralston Day, presented by Liberty First Credit Union and your friends at 1620 The Zone, where we're currently employed.
Hey, big thanks to our guests on the show today, Evan Bland, Jacob Bigelow, Patrick Murphy. Radio replays up for anything that you missed. Tomorrow, going to be talking to Sam McEwen, Brian Christopherson. Also, really excited to be talking about the new volleyball documentary on Nebraska. We'll be talking to both directors tomorrow as well.
Very Stanley Kubrick.
It'll be very, very good stuff. And we get one day closer to college football this weekend. Aer Lingus Classic. That's not the only game in week 0,
no,
too.
There's several barn burners.
So, yes.
Take in.
Looking
Mexico State is one of them.
To all of that. I'm trying to see.
The Aggies. No more Jerry Kill.
Do we have... What is our practice today?
Us?
Let's see. Post-practice media availability. Okay, so we don't have anything today. It's tomorrow.
I
was curious. Want to know? We're on starting quarterback watch right now.
Waiting
Who's going to be announced?
The red smoke to come out of South Stadium.
Yes. What are they going to announce? That Jalen Grahamstead is? No, I'm just kidding.
If someone blow the Viking horn and you just hear it.
No. Crossover coming up next. The Connor Happer Show with
the person it's named after.
Connor Happer.
He's back.
New daddy. He's coming back in. So he will join us in the crossover for Peter and for Jimmy. I'm Nick. Appreciate you tuning in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley, Jimmy and Peter and everyone else. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 6 a.m. right here on 1620 The Zone.